Sunlight begins to fade now, and I feel like I'm losing time, but I don't know how I'm here. The sunlight has turned to gray, and I feel like I'm losing love again. I don't know how I'm here. I could feel your heartbeat. I could feel it somewhere you're looking down. I could feel your heartbeat. I could feel it somewhere you're looking down. 'Cause it's you I'm loving, and it's you that I wanna breathe. And it's you I'm loving, and it's you that I wanna need.
There's a drift.
And there's no pit. Are they semi-sequential? I thought they were.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome and good afternoon here to SimracersWorld TV. My colleagues here are getting all ahead of themselves and just can't contain themselves for the excitement that is the Dynamixx Daytona 500. It's 200 laps of the perhaps most legendary oval, pretty much. Some would say Indianapolis. I want to say Daytona. Anyways, let's not get ahead of ourselves at all already here in the booth and start discussing while we are just introducing. My name is Hasse Rømer. I'm here with Jack Werrell and Jack Oliphant. 2 times Jack. It's going to get all the better, and I think we're going to have an absolute blast in the booth today. Lads, what are your expectations coming into this one?
I think lots of close racing. We see a lot of close racing on circuits, like road circuits, which is what we normally showcase here on SimracersWorld TV. But it's going into the unknown for us, I think, because I've never commentated on an oval in my life. I've driven around them, and I was just driving around then. If you couldn't tell, I couldn't restrain myself from giving these NASCAR Cup cars a go. And I've got to say, it's tricky. It looks much easier than it actually is, and massive respect to all the drivers that can race these door to door and nose to tail, as we're seeing at the moment. Both the SimracersWorld esports cars nose to tail, mid corner as well. It's nothing you'd really see anywhere else in motorsport. So I think we're in for a real good treat today.
Yeah, I sort of agree with Jack. I think we've got a lot of drafting that's going to happen, and a lot of overtakes as well. NASCAR is one of the most popular motorsports in the world for a good reason, and Daytona is obviously the sort of highlight of the season for a lot of spectators and drivers. So the fact that we're kicking off this special event with such a legendary track and event is going to be just so exciting, and we're going to see what all the fuss is about, really.
Yeah, indeed. It's something new for all of us here. I don't think any of us in the booth has really done any commentary on oval racing before. And I don't know about you two lads, but I think I have yet to do my 10th race in the street stock car here in iRacing. I've done a little bit of looking and feeling and smelling to what is exactly the world of oval racing, but I haven't really delved far into it. Never had any experience with these cup cars. Either way, as we're watching absolute teamwork happening here, and that is the cars of, I think that's at least one of them being Ian Roots, and the second one, the number 18 car, it's Stuart Musselwhite. Of course it is. And it's gonna be real complicated, lads, because usually as a Jack, you were talking about something. That's gonna confuse the hell out of us tonight here. But Mr. Oliphant mentioned that drafting an absolute key part, as if it isn't already, in dare I say European racing. Road racing, of course, also exists over there in America. Series like the IMSA series, and said, oh, as Musselwhite picks up some kind of, what kind of problem was happening there for Stuart Musselwhite? He blew his engine, of course he did. A good point. The car started smoking all of a sudden, and you'd have to expect that there was a little bit of damage involved in the car getting to that point in the first place. We're coming to the very, very end of a 2-hour warm-up practice session here, and if I'm not completely mistaken, it'll be 4 laps of qualifying for each car. The question is it going to be a collective qualifying session, And I actually do believe it is. By the way, it's Thomas. Welcome to Good to have you along. And I'm not gonna lie, I do have a silenced version of the Cycling World Championships running on my laptop. So I can just peep over and see how it's going. It's gonna be a little too exciting for me not to at least have it somewhere. Don't we all do something like that with our passions in the world of sport? Here's Sven Calbert and a good deal of team cars around there, and they touch the 91 and himself, and they're all under the checkered flag. Anton Dupin telling us a bit of good info there. Single qualifier, which is of course the fairest as well, because a group qualifying session here would make it, well, random to say the least, I think. And as I say that, we're going straight into the session here. So let's see just how that works out as a broadcaster, because I don't really reckon I've done that before. Have you? Any of you guys actually tried that?
Yeah, it's very similar to what you'd normally see. You just click on the car and it appears on screen. So there you go. We're looking at, I'm assuming that's Anton Dupin. Yeah, it is in the number 16 Flemish Sim Sports NASCAR. And I know that livery looks good on every car, but I've never seen it on a NASCAR, and I can't decide whether I like it.
It's
different.
It's different. It's certainly different. But I think we're also just used to seeing some very different things on these NASCAR cars, these Cup cars, you could say, because, well, their style of liveries are usually very different than what we see in European racing. But that, of course, comes down to the fact that their shape is very much different, and it is pretty much as far removed as you can possibly come from a modern, really high-tech type of race car. Because, to be honest, these NASCAR machines are quite simple. 4-speed manual transmissions, no traction control, no ABS, no nothing really to fiddle about with except for the car setup, and of course all based on very, very strict regulations as well in terms of BOP and such, of course, meaning that performance is gonna be very close indeed. And I'm gonna be a first caller. Here is Ian Roots, our boss here at SimracersWorld TV. I'm quite interested to see whether he can bring that number 11 machine onto pole position. He's been doing a good job of setting the fastest times throughout early practice. So whether it remains that way, I think it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, the NASCAR cars are certainly interesting machines as well, because obviously everybody just thinks, oh, you just turn left. It can't be that hard. I do that in my road car all the time. Well, these cars are extremely stripped back, and frankly, they're just an odd thing to drive. But I think I can speak for all three of us in the comms box who've ever tried to drive one of these. Straight out the pits, you're pretty much guaranteed to spin, because it's 750 odd horsepower. And you can see even going through the straight here, he's got the car turning slightly to the left as they go through this sort of start-finish corner, which is an odd sort of gimmick in itself, really. They don't even class that as a corner, apparently, but it certainly looks like one to me as they go over the start-finish straight. Up the embankment, well, very, very steep. You can see how much speed they can carry through there purely because the camber of the circuit just allows you to keep your foot flat. And in qualifying, we're going to see slower times than we might do in the race purely because of the drafting and the toe that you guys mentioned before as well. So, yeah, if anybody's thinking this is easy, after jumping on last night and today just before the race, I can tell you it is absolutely not easy.
I don't think anyone's really expecting it to be so, although it is kind of a running joke over here in Europe that, oh, it's so simple. But once you get out there, and once you get in there, I want to say as well, with the field so close to one another, mind you, these cars are traveling at speeds that we rarely see over here, and in proximities to one another that would scare the living hell out of anyone in a road race on a track where you'd have to brake and such. So the intensity is always really high for these oval races, and to have to do that for 500 miles, 200 laps of this track, we think that's gonna equate to Around 2.5 hours of racing, maybe a little bit more here. And by the way, provisional pole setter from the Flemish SimSports team today. And strictly because we know that livery well here on SRW TV, it's Anton Dupin. Second is Jorn van den Akker with Kim Behaid, completing a Belgian 1-2-3, and then Bud Boland, the Manxman, in fourth, in front of Kurt van Hoenacker. And now Hendrik de Grave has topped that in the number 8 machine. His lap time a 46.422, and do expect him to become close indeed. Because normally we'd say 1 or 2 tenths, that's not really a huge gap, but here we're often talking hundreds of a second, aren't we?
Yeah, we know that that NASCAR can be incredibly close. You constantly see, whether it be on YouTube or elsewhere, if you're looking at an iRacing highlights video, there's always a really, really close oval finish, whether it's in IndyCar or a form of NASCAR or even the rookie tiers, like in the dirt oval stuff or in the street stocks, like previously mentioned. Now, Bud Boland puts it on provisional pole position with a 46.40, only 200ths quicker than Kurt van Hoenacker. And that just shows how close the timings are, and there's very, very little that can be gained. A lot that can be lost, but very, very little that can be gained. The main gain, like we mentioned before the stream, Jacko, is it's all about the draft and sometimes the push as well, because when you think about motorsport, one of the quickest ways to get around a circuit is have a car in front of you punching the hole in the air. But in NASCAR, you've got the dynamic of getting pushed as well, because if a car's a tenth, maybe a little less behind you, there's that cushion of air in between you, and if you're pushing the other car along, it's squeezing that air and almost speeding up the car in front as well.
Yeah, exactly. And I won't try and explain how the physics works, because to be honest, it's beyond me. But you can also get a bit of an effect as well by sort of slipstreaming side by side. So these cars will be constantly moving, and the NASCAR enthusiasts and the Americans do like to say that the car is either getting tight or it's getting loose, depending on how the air affects the aerodynamics of the cars. So if you hear us saying they're going tight, that means they're basically understeering, and the front end is going towards the outside of the circuit, up the embankment and into the wall. If they're getting loose, that means the back end is getting loose, and the car oversteers, and they'll end up pointing towards the inside of the circuit. So the sort of aerodynamics of these machines, although they don't look like particularly complicated cars compared to the likes of F1 or Le Mans or anything like that, it certainly affects them a great deal, because they're basically like big bricks punching their way through the air.
That's very much it. In olden days, the commentators on Danish television used to speak about a hole of no air, like a kind of vacuum behind the cars. That isn't entirely correct with and in line with, say, the modern day understanding of just how aerodynamics work. But it's a simplification that gives you a good idea of what actually happens as the car travels into that distance of close proximity to the vehicle in front. And something that is pretty normal to see actually in the world of oval motorsports. Of course, not in the open wheelers, in the IndyCar series and those feeding to it, but in all of these NASCAR stock car type of series, we do see quite a lot of bump drafting as well, with the entire pack of cars that are just able to travel that a little bit faster with a little bit of a helping hand from behind. This in turn, of course, has to be timed perfectly, because if you try to do this in the middle of one of these bank corners, you're gonna see it all going terribly wrong. And I think all the three of us in the booth here are gonna be fingers crossed that we get a clean start and get them filed out as much as possible. I don't know how much experience each of these drivers actually have with oval racing, but it's such a different thing than that I don't necessarily think we can take their level, because we do know quite a number of these drivers in advance and are well familiar with what kind of level they normally perform to on the road. But yeah, the oval game is a different one indeed. I think we're having the final couple of cars finishing qualifying, and I think that once the session ticks out, we're gonna have a grid to talk you through as well.
Yeah, we should have that grid for you very shortly. Gavin Hall's still out on the road, and like you mentioned, Hasse, lots of these drivers we know from other series here on Sim Racers World. We've got obviously Bod Boland, Hendrik de Grave, Antoine Dupin, Carl Sharkey, just to name a few. Then we've got the boss man in as well, Ian Roots. He streams on his own channel on Twitch. A lot of the time he's racing against the AI in these cup cars, and something I've noticed, you mentioned that margins are few and far between, but if you look from P2 to P4, they have set exactly the same lap times, and then Carl Sharkey behind is only 100th slower. Go back to Kim Bahate and Ian Roots, they've set exactly the same lap times, and that just shows if they're this close in qualifying, when they've got help and strategy play will be taking effect throughout the race, this race is going to be really, really close.
It certainly is. Oh, sorry, no, it certainly is. Yeah, I mean, those of us who sort of used to maybe world touring cars or sort of like touring car racing or F1 or something, we're used to seeing like a tenth or two being really narrow, and a hundredth being something we almost never see between two drivers. You expect to see hundredths of a second being a massive difference in the in oval racing, which is very exciting for us to see, and you can see the grid order now.
So it is Bod Boland on pole position with Kurt van Hoornacker joining him on row 1, Hendrik de Grave and Anton Dupin of Belgium on row 2, then Carl Sharkey, Jorn van den Akker, Kim Bahate and Ian Roots, the bossman, in row 4 indeed, then Dean Sims, Ryan D. Walker and Gavin Halls, and Austin Gretorix is rounding out what is now going to be the top 12, Stuart Musselwhite and Ivo Carrera, then Jochen Lennartz and Roberto Mata. Sven Calvert in 17th place with Luca Becker of Luxembourg. Then Gregory Franks, Kasper Nyström of Sweden, the only Scandinavian driver here for Big Bone Racing. We've got Bram van Uyften, Sam Bentham, Jan Tusting, and Thijs van den Berge, if I'm not mistaken there at the end indeed. So then through that, I think a few drivers that didn't show up in the end here, we're going to have to make do. I was just about to say 20 cars though. With a relatively limited amount of space, it's going to be more than enough for the action to be hot indeed. Now, we aren't going to be far away from getting the warm-up laps underway here. I think about 40 seconds. And our very first oval stream, oval race, and the first race we commentate upon as individuals and as a trio as well, is going to be underway. So it's going to be fairly new territory here. Of course, the grandstands are, well, completely empty as of the COVID-19 regulations here. We do want to give you complete and utter immersion here from the world of iRacing, and are doing our very best to do just so. The big old safety truck that they're using here is rolling off, and so is the entirety of the field. Here is Bod Boland. Let's go on board to a frightening display from his gearbox. And Jacko, that's a lot of horsepower in behind Bod here.
It absolutely is, and he'll be sort of feeling the pressure a little bit now after sticking it on the front row of the grid. But when we get to the actual race, I can imagine this camera angle, you won't be able to see much because you'll have the front end of probably that Toyota of Hendrik de Grave or Anton Dupin right on the back side of him. It's going to be so close to slipstream, and obviously we're just doing a little bit of a green flag lap now. Not much weaving. That's again another thing that's sort of quite different to the sort of world of European racing, we could say, or track racing. There's not much tyre warming going on here. I'm not sure if that is an intentional tactic of the drivers or if they just don't need it, to be honest.
I think oh, sorry, Jack, go on.
I was going to say, I think for a lot of the oval racing with my, albeit limited experience, the tyres get up to temperature very quickly naturally anyway, so not much tyre warming required. Obviously, if you took behind a car as well, your car will be getting hotter, so that's something the drivers will have to deal with, temperatures, not just with the tyres, with the engines as well. And I did a quick calculation, as you mentioned it, Hasse, over 18,500 horsepower following this safety truck round going before we get onto lap 1 of the Daytona 500.
That is an impressive amount of horses just waiting to get out there as the safety car rolls off. The field is about to go green, and it's Bod Boland on the inside lane there in the number 12 machine as they cross the line and are off. 200 laps, 500 miles, 2-file coming down towards turn 1. Let's see if everyone's gonna make it. There is a few bits of jockeying for position and they're going 3 wide here.
Yeah, 3 wide in the background. That's Anton de Pan, Jorn van den Akker, and Ian Root 3 wide on the back stretch for the first time. You can see everybody's trying to peek their way up through the order. Ian Root's round the outside. He's gone along. That's almost 4 wide. There's maybe a bit of an overlap coming up, but Ian Root with a brilliant start. He's already gained 4 positions from where he started, starting back in P8. He's making the outside line work for him, but he doesn't have any help up there, so he might need to slot back down into the second lane. That's what he looks to do now, but Anton de Pan is on the inside. So there's very limited room there, but a very, very busy start to this 200-mile race. 200-lap race, pardon me.
Yeah, it's amazing. We've already had a full lap as well. There's one driver jumped to the inside of the circuit. I'm not sure who that was. I think it was Stuart Musselwhite. I'm not entirely sure, though. But you can see Root's trying to hang out the outside. But Bob Boland's absolutely dominating this race in the early stages. He, of course, hasn't got anybody in front of him to punch a big hole in the air. So I'm sure throughout this race he'll probably drop back a little bit through the order, but expect to see him around the top 5 for sure for the rest of this race.
Yes, they're fairly cleanly away here. I think the only ones causing a little bit of problem would be my timing tower here, who seems... Oh, and then just as I've said that, the number 15 car... And that was the 2 leaders, Bob Boland and Van den Hoenacker, both of them making contact. And whatever happened there, we're going to have another look here. I think this is the earliest we can find of it. Nope, that's from the look of Thijs van den Berge, who just has to cut to the inside. Does he? Oh, and they're going off ahead as well. Oh, and in the end, even Van den Berge also loses it. And we do have our first yellow flag. So our first caution 3 laps into the race. And I'm just going to see if we can pull up. Oh, so there it is. It's the 15 car just cutting across on the number 12 machine of Bob Boland. And the calamity that it causes further on. See 2 cars just making contact at the late stage there as well. And now the question is, how many of these drivers are going to be pitting in so early in the race? Because you think 4 laps might not even be worth it, but I've read that strategy-wise, it often makes sense for the drivers actually to just go in and fuel pretty much whenever possible under yellow flag.
Yeah, I think that is it's a very odd strategy play, and we've seen many drivers make this work. But I think at this point in the race, for me, if I was out in one of these cup cars, I'd probably just sit behind and seeing the replay again. And yeah, the number 15 slowly dropped down in front as they crossed the line. Not what we wanted to see at all. Only 4 laps into the race. Here it is again. So Bob Boland in the number 12, left with nowhere to go. The number 15 in front of him. He then gets slung back around as the 15 slams it into his left rear quarter panel, sliding, holding the brakes, trying to minimize any damage to anybody else. Does a good job. Everybody else gets out of the way pretty well. I think there was only a slight bit of contact a little further back. Yep, I think that was when Thijs van den Berg couldn't get it slowed down, which sends everybody flying away. But Bob Boland slides down to the bottom end of the track. Another Dynamixx car cutting through the end of pit exit. But because he went across the pit lane before the pit exit cones, Ian Root's diving into the pit lane now. Does that mean he will have either got a speeding in the pit lane or an unsafe pit entrance penalty?
Well, that's a very good question, and something I'm not actually completely aware of, to be honest here. But it could very well be that they're up for something bad if they inadvertently go in at that sort of speed in the pit lane. So we have the pit crews literally being summoned as drivers are coming in, and it often this actually gets surprisingly strategic, because you wouldn't really expect it necessarily. But those split-second decisions of whether or not to pit. See now Ian Root's and a couple of other cars, they're going to be pretty much at the back of the line when they come back out on the track. And though with a little bit of an advantage on fuel concerning how far they can go on in the race. So just what's going to happen in that sense, well, we don't know much yet, to be honest. We're going to be all the wiser after 500 miles of racing here today. Seems like such an extreme distance to cover in such a short amount of time. But does indeed make sense. Because the field is now getting collected up behind the truck. So look here from the blimp cam.
I'm slightly surprised with the people jumping into the pits, to be honest. I mean, it seems like they're only gaining about 3 or 4 laps extra sort of on fuel. You know, I'm guessing they were fueled up right at the start. They've only used 3 or 4 laps of that fuel. They probably haven't changed tyres, and now they're going to have to be fighting their way through the order until everybody else has to pit. So maybe they sort of damaged their tyres a little bit with a scrub. Maybe there's a bit of a sideways moment for a few of them. But as you say, Hasse, I think we're going to be much the wiser after 500 miles of this Daytona. We're still underneath the safety car. I'm not entirely sure how long this safety car is going to be out for. I can't imagine it's much longer, as we don't see any of the cars sort of around and about the inside of the circuit. So Anton Dupin is going to be the driver who leads us away and restarts this way sooner rather than later, hopefully.
So an entirety of field now having to bunch up again, and I think they're also realizing this. But you could say there is a point in trying to stay out, at least until a certain amount of fuel has been burned from the tank. Whether it's going to make sense, we'll see later on. Seeing the 22 car of Roberto Motta currently in 7th place. He's actually carrying a little bit of rear end damage, and you'll be able to see that, I think, next time we get a shot.
A massive amount of front end damage,
Yeah,
isn't there? About number 20.
I think that's Jochen Lennertz. I noticed that as well, Jacko. The entire front section of the car's missing, so he clearly got caught up in that incident. It will help his cooling, no end, to no end, but that will massively affect his straight line speed. So whether he's aware of that, I don't know. He has his teammate behind him, so if and when Sven Kalbert behind does get in front, he might have to just say, can you let me know what's up with my car? It's slow. But you'd have thought with that damage, he would have gone into the pits as everybody else did. Safety car lights now off, and we're going to go green this lap, I think, Hasse.
Yeah. Into the pit, it swings and just about to go green yet again here on lap 6 of the Dynamixx Daytona 500. And Anton Dupin goes early this time around. And look at that, that's a bit of teamwork, because they were actually able to break away from Jorn van den Akker. The Flemish Sim Sports car are running away here. Van den Akker is also with a bit of... Look at that, they're all bunching up behind as they come into turn 1. Number 22 machine there on the outside. And Sam Bentham here in the 24 car, the white, pink, and light blue machine as well. And question is there further on, I think Nyström, the Swede, might have had an issue. Or else he's just had a close call, because he's going very slowly and running down the order now. But seems to me, gentlemen, that we've had another clean start. And maybe it's just a question of how long it takes before they start battling as someone dives into the pit now, and that's sure going to be a big old disadvantage. That was the number 6 car, I believe, pitting in. That's John... No, that's not. So is that Nyström? Nope. But he's past someone, I believe. Back to live pictures. There's plenty of action happening there. It was indeed Gavin Hall's. Good call, Jack. Look at this now. More bunching up here as the number 4 car makes it all the way around the outside. And maybe we'd like to have that. That's Kim Behet. Look at that. He keeps on going. Carries all the overspeed. And the 555 machine of Ryan Walker looking to make it 3 wide around the outside, but I think he thinks better of it. But it almost becomes an inadvertent 3 wide in the middle as well there. And this is the point where they really have to be careful. There is a substantial gap from Roberto Motta, who's the last driver, still in the mix here. Stuart Musselwhite and Ian Roots as well, caught up behind a 3.5 second gap. And well, as they go 3 wide here as well. I was just about to say that might be an important one. Of course, unless we just have another safety car period later on. The drivers, however, do have 2 fast repairs. And it might just be a case of some of these drivers expecting to have more incidents than what they've already encountered, and thus not choosing to go for any of the fast repairs just yet.
Yeah, Anton Japan is doing really well to keep ahead of this field, but they had such a good restart after the safety car, and everybody else just seems to have caught them relatively easily. I don't think that's because they're going slow. I think that's just a sort of characteristic of oval racing. The fact that, you know, as soon as you're within the tow, within the drafting sort of the car ahead, you just get swept along with these drivers. Overtaking a back marker there. I'm not entirely sure which car that is. Didn't catch the number on the side there, but Bayhate is now ahead of Anton Japan. He's on the outside. Will he try and tuck back to the inside? This is how we saw the safety car originally start. No, he actually has enough room this time in the Toyota and gets ahead of the other Toyota.
Oh, the screams of the beastly V8 motors, I think we have to call them when it's these types of machines. Still running by at great speed indeed. Oh, look at that. Henrik de Graves, he just opening up a gap that didn't necessarily have to be opened for the 555 machine of Ryan Walker. Could be a thing that he's just trying to get to the back of this line of cars. Well, if that would make sense, I'm not really sure. But it looked to me like he did have the space. There's now a slide gap here. And Ian moves. I'm having to wonder. Oh no, I was just a little bit away back here. So this is kind of the second pack at the moment, with another slide gap appearing behind these. And these drivers are going to have to be clever about working together if they want to see themselves getting back to level terms with the fellas ahead. And I think, oh, we have Jochen Lennartz of the Dynamixx team, actually the founder and owner of Dynamixx Simulators, who's racing with us here today. Also kindly sponsoring the event and making it possible in its entirety, but having had some kind of issue as well. He's been in the pits here early on. Let's see if he can find his way back here.
Yeah, that pit exit sort of lane is really, so it takes you very far around to the back straight of this circuit, so you kept well out of the way for any cars going around, but it must be very scary to have all those sort of horsepower absolutely screaming past you on the embankment as you're sort of trying to pedal yourself round to rejoin the circuit. If you think that rejoining a motorway is relatively intimidating, well, try and rejoining this motorway. The slip road is not everyone's friend. Hendrik de Graeve, though, has gotten into the race lead. So the number 8 car, we saw him dive to the outside, opening a gap that we didn't think really needed to be opened. Well, he clearly knows a little bit more than we do, because he's now in first with Kim Bayhate behind. Anton Japan is now in fourth. Ryan Walker split in the 4 Belgians in third place.
Yeah, indeed. Oh, sorry, Jack, go on.
Yeah, I was going to say, we saw quite an odd move for Hendrik de Graeve, and you made a good point, Hasse, that he could be dropping to the back, because then that would mean that would be a Flemish Simsport car at the front and a Flemish Simsport car at the back, in theory controlling the entire front group. But yeah, like you said, he knows something we don't. He did get a bit of help from the 555 of Ryan Walker, and that's definitely working for Ryan at the moment, because Hendrik de Graeve dropped back down to the bottom to pick up the lead. But look at Ryan Walker now challenging for the lead round the outside. He does have the help of Sam Bentham by the looks of it, so it's still Flemish 1, 2, 3 on the lower line, but back up to the higher line it's still Ryan Walker, Sam Bentham. I think Roberto Motta is trying to get in on the mix as well, so you can see 2 defined lines all working together here, all keeping it clean, but they're almost, at this point at the back, you've got to decide, do you go to the high line and maybe make it work and get a bit of help, or do you stay on the bottom and play it safe? And it's that's another play on strategy that you've got to think about as well.
Yeah, indeed. And right now the Flemish Simsports team is just trying to shut the door on the inside line with 3 cars, trying to make it a solid block. That's going to be a lot more difficult to pass on the outside than just a single car. And mind you, of course, they're going to be working together. So it makes sense for Ryan Walker and Sam Bentham to just try and do the same thing around the outside. If you're subtle enough, you can carry a little more speed there onto the straights. And we've seen that work out on several occasions already. And coming into these types of long 2 single or double file lines of cars that are battling on, it very much becomes a game of patience as well, because as long as you're in contact, i.e. as you're in the slipstream of the pack as a whole, you'll actually really easily be able to floor it and just move up ever so slightly over the course of a few laps, and you could just hold on back for a little bit, plan your attack, and try to make it count at a later stage of the race. We are 17 laps into it, so a tenth of the distance almost now. Still an awful long way to go. 15 minutes of racing. That is an overall time on racing, mind you. We've had, what, 6-7 minutes of caution periods already. We're hoping, of course, not to see too many of them, especially because if we're seeing cautions, it means that people are indeed going to be suffering. Oh no, just as we come on to it, I think that's 2 of the SRW cars that Stuart Musselwhite making contact with Ian Roots, who's come back onto the track. I think, Jacko, that Ian's actually managed to hold it. Let's have a look here at what happened.
Yeah, by the looks of it, I think this is the second time that Stuart Musselwhite has actually been involved in an off-track incident. He was sort of there, and I think Ian maybe just came a bit across. He did leave a little bit of a gap open. Obviously, the 2 teammates really don't want to be making contact. There maybe should have been a little bit better communication. I'm sure they're talking to each other over the Discord. But yeah, that's not ideal for Ian, who's already taken a pit stop. That's why he was in that back sort of area of the field. Here's the front area of the field. Hendrick and Graves gotten back past. We saw Ryan Walker take the race lead, but somehow Hendrick's gotten it back. Not ideal for Ian, that's for sure, Jack. And I think Musselwhite is going to be a bit apologetic about that one, maybe.
Yeah, he'll have to be, because it's not just his teammate, it's also his boss in theory, because Ian Roots obviously runs and owns all of the SimracersWorld affiliated teams, TVs and whatever else he's got in the making. So yeah, he'll definitely be trying to make amends for that, but 45 laps, or 45 miles of the 500 that we need to complete. So, like you say, Hasse, almost a tenth of the way there now. Hendrick de Graves still leading the way from Ryan Walker, who's worked his way up through the order quietly. He's gained 8 positions, but the man behind him in the higher line, that man there, Sam Bentham, in the number 24 machine, up 18 positions. So he's really made the most of the first caution. Didn't dive into the pit lane, and he followed Ryan Walker up through the pack, and he's working right way up almost into a podium position in P4 at the moment. Still got to negotiate the Flemish Sim Sports cars that seem to be dominating the top 5 at the moment, but not a bad start for Sam. It's what he's looking for going into a 200 lap race, and if he can keep this momentum up, he's looking for a good result.
Yeah, indeed. There's something interesting that we've seen some of the cars actually come back from the pack behind. I don't know how exactly, but somehow it's happened, because this was a battle going around to P8 before. Now we see Greg Franks in B8, but Carl Sharkey, Roberto Mata, still very much a part of this as well. And then if we go back to 11th place here, we see Bud Boland, it's Calbert van Hoonacker, and Paul Gosling, Austin Gutierrez, and Bram van Hoeften as well. And a bit of blinking there, so it's not because we've had any incidents or anything here. As the 2-wide train continues on now, you see the Flemish Sim Sports cars. It's the 16 machine of Anton Dupin and the number 4 car of Kimpe Hayt. They're both trying to find their way through on the outside now, as their teammate Hendrick de Graaf is still maybe just trying to shut in the drivers there. That's Ryan Walker, Sam Bentham, and the 24 machine. And normally here in NASCAR racing, we associate any 24 machine with the DuPont livery of Jeff Gordon. Well, not today. Crossing the line, almost 20 minutes into it now. And to be honest, I feel like, and this is a great thing about open racing in general as well, everything can still happen here.
It can indeed, and I think we're expecting to see potentially another caution period. I mean, we're on lap 22 out of 200, so the likelihood is we saw one within the first 3 laps. We're going to see another one at some point. Obviously, we don't really want to see any if we can for a while, because we want to see how this race develops, get everyone into sort of a rhythm, make sure everybody's got their cars up to temperature, and maybe then we'll have a start looking at this strategy to see whether they are people changing tyres, going for splash and dashes, all this sort of thing. Obviously, there are 2 races forming here. If they could join up somehow, that would be absolutely fantastic to see. But you can see there's an absolutely huge gap between the front end of the field, which is the top 10 really, and the back towards the Bob Boland at 11th.
When you say a huge gap, Jacko, it's a gap of just around 8 seconds at the moment. So it's really, when you compare it to the sort of gaps we're used to seeing, let's say an 8-second gaps. Of course, it's not an easy one to close, but it's certainly not. And as they get swervy on there, the entire pack getting a little insecure about just how they were gonna negotiate that situation. Well, it all plays out fine in the end. And it's still Behaid Dupont de Grave 1, 2, 3 yet again for Flemish Sim Sports, who's really been trying to play the team game maybe a little better than Stuart Musselwhite managed to do with the boss man Ian Roots, who's put into a spin, but skillfully so actually. Ian with a lot of oval experience to his name as well, managing to keep the car out the wall in that situation. That could prove to be really important for Ian, couldn't it, later, Jack?
Yeah, I think it could. It was a very, very big moment, and you saw the flaps on the roof and the bonnet deployed there, keeping the pressure stabilized over the car, making sure the car doesn't go skywards and maybe onto its roof. But I've got to say, I am surprised it didn't flick into a caution, but it's kept the race momentum going. Everybody's still running towards the moment. This pack, it seems to be spreading out a little bit. I say that camera angle didn't really do it justice. You can see bigger gaps forming, but it may look like that for a short while, but then when you get onto the backstretch, which we're looking at the moment, you can see the cars getting closer and closer together as the draft plays effect. The Flemish Sim Sport cars, they've surely done some practice together, because it just looks so natural with this trio. The cars look so balanced, so settled in the corners. They're more than happy to stick 100th, 1,000th away from each other. So Flemish Sim Sports really got the bit between the teeth with this one. See another bit of lap traffic working its way out of the way. Back to the previous battle though, Hasse. I think that Sven Kelton, although he's leading the way for the moment, sorry, as Bob Boland is leading the way for the moment, it seems like that train that was forming behind them has merged into it, and this pack has become a bit of a thing of its own really, because they've lost touch with the leaders. But maybe that could be a good thing, because less cars possibly means less incidents.
Yeah, that's very true indeed, but look at this now, it's also becoming a single file, and I think these drivers down here are acknowledging the fact that if they just help each other along, they are actually closing the gap now to the group ahead. And last time we checked, it was around 8 seconds. It's actually down to almost just 6 seconds now. So this pack of cars could very, very well be returning to the action at the head of the field. And those, however, put off here at the rear of the gap, might be finding themselves in a spot of bother. And that's, of course, those who've had small incidents here. But we've seen a couple of cars actually making it onto the back end of this train as well, the front end of the field. And it does make sense that the type of squabbling around that you have at the front of a pack like this is indeed going to be slowing it down. And also worth noting is that if they don't really push each other about too much, they go on in the straight lines, you can't really go any faster than the front car anyways. So interesting to see if the cars behind are actually going to be able to close that gap. Now they're onto the same straight almost, and at these speeds, a gap of just a few seconds, it's going to be quite a long distance when measuring it up like that. So it still looks massive, also maybe a little bit more massive than it actually is. So still the Flemishman 1, 2, and 3, and there is Stuart Musselwhite, I think, on the outside. Seems to me he's lost a little bit of impetus in his car, as that is a tricky situation. He just nudges the wall. Did you see that, Jacko? Sparks flying from the left-hand side of the car.
It certainly looked dramatic. There's another dramatic incident. It's a 91 car, I think that was. I'm not entirely sure who it's going to be. It's Anton Dupin we're looking at here as the 91 car gets all kind of twisted in the back. That's Roberto Motta, so he's dropped down the order. That's the 22 car, sorry, Roberto Motta dropping down. He's the car that the original car turned into. And I'm just trying to have a look and see how that happened here in slow-mo. Great angle there, Hasse. 91 car of... I'm struggling to see this, guys. Can you guys see who 91 is?
I think it's the 94 machine, possibly, that's popping up on screen. Let's see whether we can get another angle of it. Is it the 91? It's a weird font.
It's Thijs
91 could be Vandenberg, to be fair.
Yeah, I think it is. I think indeed it is.
Vandenberg turning into the 22 Roberto Motta, who's really struggling to get his car back towards, well, facing in a straight line, and you can see the amount of horsepower if the front end is not gripping quite so right. Here is the second caution period of the race then. Not surprisingly to have the safety car back out, and this will bunch everyone back up together. It's probably exactly what the backpack were hoping for, because they really need to now get up and challenge the front runners if they've got any chance of resurrecting a good race from here.
Yeah, indeed. And talk about the backpack. How about the actual real rear-end runners here, like Ian Roots, who's got pushed into a spin, and without really picking up any consequential damage, it seems to me at least, he's not really lost pace. But it's going to be a great big second chance for him. And mind you, actually, there's one good point in if having that earlier pit stop under the caution for Ian Roots, that's going to mean that he's going to be able to spend less time fueling this time around in order to get to a full tank. And that in turn means that if he's, now he just might still be a little bit behind the rest of the pack here, but he still might just be able to actually gain a couple of track positions that way through. So strategies are going to be playing in here, and I expect more or less the entirety of the field to come in here. So we're going to see if that's the case, or if anyone chooses to stay out. I'm going to go to...
Well, it's really important, Jack, isn't it? Because I think the rules in NASCAR racing is the fact that if you're a lap down, but you're the leading car that is a lap down, that makes sense. So Ian Roots, basically, he gets to overtake the safety car and rejoin the back of the leading lap. So he gets to unlap himself. And that's going to be massive news to Ian, isn't it? That's exactly what he was hoping to do after that earlier contact.
Yeah, 100%. I think, if I'm not mistaken, which 99% of the time I am, but I think that's called the lucky dog. Where you do get to go back past the safety car and, like you say, catch back up onto the lead lap. And that means that with the early strategy play, what he's done is he's caught back up to everybody on strategy, and possibly, if he plays his cards right and gets out of the pit lane as quick as possible, he might even pick up a couple of positions in there as well. And now we're seeing the very, very long pit exit. As previously mentioned, it brings you back out onto the back straight, but not what we like to see. We managed to go a little bit further this time, a bit more than 4 laps than what we previously saw, but everybody back out on the road. But I think the big thing to pull away from this is the shuffling in the order. Like you mentioned, if you're a lap down, you can go back round and back past the safety car, get back onto the lead lap. And then that, in theory, brings everybody back to level again, because 99% of the field, as we've seen, has dived into the pit lane and got, whether it be a fresh set of tyres and or a full tank of fuel. So everybody's back to equal again. Everybody's on the same strategy, all on the same lap, which only brings the racing closer for the next few stages of the race.
It really does. It's also a thing that can aid to revive whatever action is happening all around the field, basically. Didn't really see. Did any of you lads actually see if any of the drivers involved in the incidents did take any fast repairs here? I think a few of the drivers there would be well served to have taken a fast repair in that situation, but I'll see if I can keep count on the situation, because that might be crucial as well in the later parts of the race. In the lead now, Kurt van Hoornacker, who did also pit, I think, who did not pit, at least one of the times he didn't pit.
Pitted on lap 4 by the looks of it, Hasse.
So he was in early as well. Yes, that's very much true, and he's the only driver of the entirety of the field, at least who's still running on the lead lap, who didn't pit this time around. So Kurt van Hornacker with an interesting choice there of strategy, and just how that's going to affect him later in the race. Well, we're just going to have to see here.
Just having a look, we were talking about the lucky dog rule. It looks like on our timing towers that Ian Roots is still a lap down, so I'm not sure if he's been allowed to recatch the back of the pack. It'll be interesting to see if we can get a little bit of a sort of focusing him on the cameras, because Ian Roots at the moment is in 20th place, but it says he is a lap down, so I could be wrong there. It could just be my timing tower getting messed up, but I'm not sure if Ian's on the lead lap here.
Yeah, but I'm afraid it says the same for me here. It says he's the same on the same lap as Gavin Halls, Ivo Carrera, Bram van Hoefden and John Tusting as well. That might just be because they haven't passed the line yet. And I think we're gone back to green without really having seen it, lads. Kurt van Hornacker now leading the pack away as we're green yet again here from the Dynamixx Daytona 500. We are 33 laps into it out of the 200 to do. We've been racing for half an hour. We have got a more or less collected field.
We do indeed. You can now see another Flemish Sim Sports leading the way for the moment. Oh, chopping down onto the bottom lane. Anton Dupin deciding that the top lane isn't for him. He's sort of sitting in the middle. He's got a teammate on the running the high line and a teammate running the lower line. I think it's Kimber Haight at the bottom. Let's have a look as they combine. Now Kimber Haight is at the top lane. I say that as they both swap positions. They're not making it easy for me. A massive sideways moment for Hendrik de Grave. I wonder whether we can get a replay of that at some point, Hasse. I know it won't have been picked up on the event viewer, but very, very sideways as he crossed the start-finish line, which could have just been maybe a bit of dirty air. So keep an eye on Hendrik de Grave in the number 8 Flemish Sim Sports car on the high line. Comes round. Oh no, this is going into turn 1. It will have been a little bit further back after it would have been back towards the start-finish line. We saw it as both the Flemish Sim Sports cars swapped lanes. You can now see Ryan Walker in that 555. Keep an eye on him. He's not been punching the hole in the air for anybody as of yet, but he has been there or thereabouts. So I think my money's on Ryan Walker at the moment to get back up towards the front end of the order, stop punching the hole for the high line. And for me personally, I think he's going to be on for a great result here.
Yeah, it's so difficult to say. We obviously don't want to put the commentators' curses. I did, and my first ever SimRacersWorld broadcast, 4 laps in, putting the commentators' curse on Bob Bolton. By the way, up to 9th place, and I think it's within 6 of the lead pack, which is great to see. So all of a sudden, we've backed everybody back up, and everybody's involved with this leading pack, fighting for top 10s, podium positions, their little in battles, trying to get as many points maybe as they can for the team championship. So obviously this is a one-off event. There is no team championship, but I'm sure as a team they'd like to fall up the order compared to the rest of them. At the moment, it's the Belgians and the Fleming esports team that lead the way really in that fight.
As we're riding on board with Austin Gretorix, it is indeed the Flemish Sim Sports team there on the inside, still just trying to put up a block of 3 cars, making it difficult for all the others, especially if they're not having an organized effort in the same way here. Austin Gretorix, we've been on board for a long time. Look at that. Gets a very good run on the number 7 machine of Carl Sharkey. And might be a little bit of working together happening there. As you see, Austin Gretorix there being pretty patient. You can hear him lifting off because he doesn't want to carry too much speed. And this also tells me that he's not trying to help out the Toyota up ahead. The 555 machine there of Ryan Walker. He doesn't really want to get too pushy here, but of course it could be a very dodgy position that they're putting themselves into. So they might just want to stay clear of that. Now there's a little bit of a gap down to Paul Gosling at the back end of the field, but this time around it seems a little bit more drivers getting onto the back end of the train, right, Jack?
Yeah, definitely. You can see that gap has massively come down. The safety car has brought everybody back into contention and to given everybody another opportunity to get back up towards the front end of the order. At this point in the race, very, very early on, as we've previously mentioned, 200 racing laps to be had. Only on lap 37 at the moment. You can almost gain more just by sitting behind, as long as you stay within that draft range. Even if you drop back to 1 second, almost 1.5 seconds, if you put your foot to the floor again, you will gain back up. You're not just getting draft off one car, you're getting draft off, just looking at this pack, almost 8 cars. So all that extra speed which you'll carry through after a bit of solo testing, you can take the corners by yourself at about 300 kilometers an hour. So with all the draft and going onto the back straight as well, you're looking at probably almost 320, 330 kilometers an hour, which is insane speeds. I'm sure we might be able to get something like that up past there if it's available to us. If it's available to us, if we have the data coming through. There we go. So 313 kilometers an hour in the corner. Has a little bit of a lift as expected. You don't want to gain too much and end up updrafting. Expect a little bit of a lift there as well. But just seeing that speed displayed so close, like we've already mentioned, thousands between each other, and Formula One speed through corners as well. It's insane. It's out of this world almost, isn't it?
It's absolutely nuts, and I see the charm of this thing as the entire field screams through, just inches away from the camera. And something I've really noticed as well is in one of the later updates that came out for iRacing, they've added a much improved camera shake as the cars pass by close, as we see it in effect right there, actually. That's something I really find cool.
Yeah, we do love a new camera angle. Us broadcasters, it's always nice to see, isn't it? But these guys are certainly, I mean, they're so close to each other. You can sort of see the angle of the steering wheel that these drivers are putting on. So, I mean, I personally thought before obviously we were going to do this, that I thought, oh, you know what, it's just over racing, you just keep your foot flat to the floor and turn left. There's so much more tactics from it, and it's a lot like the oval cycling, really, at the Olympics and stuff, where you almost get a slingshot around the drivers, or cyclists in that instance. And that's what Sam Bentham is trying to get here. So although that Anton Dupin has got on the inside line, you can see the 555 car of Ryan Walker. He's going to try and get a slingshot around Sam Bentham at some point. Big off in the background there.
And I'm afraid that's going to be another problem. That's Ian Roots, who got, that looks like a netcode in the first place. Him and the number 12 car, Ian Roots, hard into the barrier. The number 12 machine of Bud Boland involved again, and Ian Roots making, well, the best he can, I guess, out of a pretty bad situation. He goes into the pit lane. The thing is that we did not see the yellow flag coming out, so no caution here. And the boss himself on the receiving end of some very poor luck on his incidents for the second time this race.
Yeah, not what we like to see. I think that was Van Honacker in the number 15 Chevrolet that ended up collecting Ian. I think 3 cars going for the same piece of tarmac, and like you say, getting slightly unlucky with a bit of network issue. So look, coming off the corner, Ian looks like he goes slightly higher in which to give room to Bod Boland, and there you go. Not much you can do. A one-way train into the wall, blows the engine, like you mentioned, a big hit into the wall. So there is the safer barrier, not doing much to protect the car. Bounces once, almost collects Bod Boland. You can see them scraping off each other once again, and then both cars in dire need of the pit lane. So I'm assuming both cars taking one of their fast repairs that they have available to them. But the race still continues on. And like you say, most importantly, we haven't gone back to this safety car. But look at this, that's Van Honacker getting caught out. There isn't a pit limiter in these cars, so that might have been a penalty for him. He carried way too much speed into the pit lane, so that with the damage that he might be carrying as well, now looking to serve a penalty.
Yeah, indeed. Let's see here. Just going to see if I can find it on board. That's much too fast across that line, onto the grass as well, locking up, a big lock up on the front tires. And that's certainly not going to help him whatsoever, because I do believe you're right on that he's going to pick up a penalty for it. Just how long, I'm not quite sure. Then Ryan Walker, Austin Gretorix, and Sven Kalbert, who's risen 11 places to be at the very front of affairs as well here in the number 73 machine. It's one of the Dynamixx drivers, as well as they have a nice little decal of Bossman Jochen as well, or maybe it's only on Jochen's own car. That's of course Jochen Lennart's. Let's So he is in there somewhere. Let's just see if we can get a little glimpse at it. I quite like it. Play on the Godfather. Of course, Dynamixx, makers of different types of simulator rigs, simulator gear indeed, and I think also some kind of paintball gear and stuff like that. So a wide array of products for, without saying that a lot of these products will of course be used and enjoyed just as much by women and anyone else. And with men, it is certainly I think a thing with these kind of with sim racing in general. It does really appeal to men who at heart are still boys. Anyways, Sam Bentham, the 24 machine, now leading Anton Dupin and Kim Behait. Then Ryan Walker in the 555 car, still high on that outside with the 13 machine of Austin Gretorix. He's rising up the order as well. He's got the inside there on Ryan Walker, and I think he is looking to come on through as well. And then the 73 car of Sven Kalbert very much in the mix as well.
Yeah, it's getting all kind of tight, especially with that back marker now in the middle of the 3 wide for the 2 leaders. That's given Anton Dupin the race lead back, as Sam Bentham had to avoid the 15 car. I think that is Kurt Van den Hecke. Sorry if I just absolutely butchered that name here. It's all happening very quickly, but he's the back market in amongst all these lead pack. And it's similar to Ian Roots, really, because he was a back market in amongst the lead pack, and he ended up having a bit of a... Oh, we had a yellow flag. Someone's gone off, I think.
A yellow flag indeed. And instantly we're, of course, going to have a look at what caused that here. Oh, so an incident in behind Van Honacker, and 2 cars are off, and that's Ryan Walker. One of them is going to be a much bigger one than just 2 cars. Huge incident indeed. And I'm going to see if we can catch a better look at what happened. Here is indeed Ryan D. Walker as he's on the upside, collects Sven Kalbert, who was doing so well, both of these drivers. Oh, that's a huge pickup for Stuart Musselwhite as well in the 18 machine there. And a lot of more drivers involved in this one, I think.
Or there's an awful lot of drivers involved in that one, and it's one of the things that Americans say they love about the NASCAR is the fact that there's so much drama and quite a lot of crashes. Really, that's quite a lot of the advertisement that these spectators love to see. We don't love to see it, obviously, with these drivers working so hard to get back up the order. Sven Kalbert especially, he was doing so well. He's still in 7th place, I think, but he was getting collected in there. Here's Stuart Musselwhite's point of view. God, imagine seeing that. We're hurtling towards it at 300 kilometers an hour.
Yeah, there isn't really anything Stuart can do at all to put himself out of the way of the crash happening ahead of him. You become an absolute passenger at that point, and what poor luck in the end. As Heat's in the pits as well. Another yellow flag period, and we're gonna see if any of the lap cars gets that lucky dog this time around. Is it so that it's 1 per yellow flag period? Or is it even more random than that?
I think my understanding is the fact that it's the person who's at the front of the lapped sort of drivers. So literally the last person before. I think anyway. I think it's 1 per safety car is the answer. I think.
Makes sense indeed here. Let's see if anyone gets the clear go ahead to move ahead of the pack. They're yet again bunching up, and we're seeing a few drivers at the head here of Dean Timms. Oh, who was that moving around? That was the... Was that the car of... Bud Boland, perhaps? It looked like the 12 machine to me was moving ahead of everything here, and could be the case that he's been the one to pick up the lucky dog. He was at least led on through. Or I'd say if he wasn't led on through, he's in for some big trouble, that's for sure. As the field now bunching up. So just about a quarter of the way through the race into our 3rd caution period. And that was quite the incident. They seem to just grow with size, maybe as the drivers are picking up confidence. But it was indeed a huge one. And well, luckily indeed it's just a simulator, because that could have been quite serious in real life. It was a big impact there as Stuart Musselwhite just plowed into the cars in front. Of course, nothing he could do about that. Currently single filing. And I wonder if it's just the case of everybody catching up to the rear end of the field before we go back to green.
Yeah, I'm going to take this very quick opportunity, if you don't mind, fellas, to sort of explain a little bit more about the sort of general NASCAR championship rules, because it is very interesting. I've been doing a lot of research about the Daytona and everything like that. I did a little bit more research on the NASCAR, and then apparently a race like Daytona is actually split into 3 types of winners. So for the first 60 laps, whoever's in the lead after 60 laps gets 10 championship points, and whoever's in the lead after 120 laps gets 10 more championship points, and obviously it's 10 down to 9, so 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then the overall winner, so the driver who comes home after 200 laps, the overall winner gets 20 championship points, and it's fed down to 10th like that as well. So it's very different. So if we ever do have a NASCAR championship on the SRW page, that's certainly going to be an interesting rule to keep an eye out for.
That's actually pretty similar to what we see at, for instance, the 24 Hours of Spa, where there's also several sets of points up for grabs. I think it's at 6 hours, 12 hours, and then at the checkered flag at 24 hours as well. And it's rather common. Of course, it does open up for a lot of different things that can actually happen during these races, because all of a sudden it's not the same leading lights to flag as it is coming from a long way back, taking the win late in the race. Anyways, here, safety car peels off, and we're about to go green yet again this time around. It's Dean Timms for year 1 racing the 46 car, leading him off here with Luca Becker second. And guess what? The Flemish Sim Sports cars, even though they've had, well, have they had one more pit stop? I don't necessarily think they were in this time around. So all of the cars who did pit this time around and who are on a full tank of fuel somewhat further down the order here as Anton Dupin cuts across. Oh, and someone's forced to go there on the inside. I think that's Luca Becker indeed, who had some kind of problem. And luckily, nothing more coming off it there. That could have been a very bad accident with everybody bunched up as they are right now here. Dean Timms losing several positions here on the get-go before a single lap has passed. Finds himself 4th, then Carl Sharkey, Sam Bentham, Greg Franks, Hendrik de Grave there in 8th place, and now a little bit of a gap developing. Let's see here, that's Ivo Correra, but quickly they bunch up together again and almost make contact. And this gentleman, ladies and gentlemen, let us say, is very, very far from over indeed.
Yeah, absolutely is. And we see the, I think Greta is very, very wide going through the first corner. But these Fleming SimSport cars, they just seem to either have another gear, they seem to have a better tactical awareness, or they're just using the teamwork very, very well, because Dean Timms seemed to have the race lead quite convincingly, and all of a sudden Dupin just got ahead, and Behet is there as well, obviously. And now we see Greatorex around the outside on the higher line in the number 13 car, trying to put the pressure on Dean Timms, falling down the order. In fact, he started the safety car period in first place. He's now down to 6th. He may well be down to 7th before the end of this corner. But Greatorex has got his nose ahead, but he's basically neck and neck with Anton Dupin.
Yeah, indeed, you can see that battle going on ahead there. That's Greg Franks just snatching the inside lane in front of Dean Timms, trying to take advantage here. They seem a little slow on the outside now, just trying to figure out what's happening with Timms here, because it didn't really make sense how he was falling down the order. The guns for just his moment in the shine, but you can't quickly lose position just by being a little bit unlucky and finding yourself boxed in at some point. And Jacko, you mentioned that it's a little bit like track cycling, and for me, who is indeed a big cycling fan, as indeed a lot of our Belgian Flemish viewers will very much know, it is very, very similar in the end, because the draft is such a big thing, and it's very much a thing that we have NASCAR races actually decided in what looks like something very reminiscent of a big bunch sprint in a cycling race. Of course, very much different, the fact that we don't have these spikes in power, But you could say there are certain similarities, and one of them being boxed in at the wrong time, you can really find yourself losing serious track position. Here is Sven Kalbert in the 73 machine, who was involved, I think, in something. Might have gone for that fast repair earlier on. And Kalbert has been twice into the pits, gained 10 positions. Greg Franks gained 13 positions to be in 6th place at the moment there in the 99 car. And it seems they're all getting a little bit more used to the fact of just leaving a little more space between one another. Of course, the problem is if one car gets loose, as they'd say over there in America, there isn't really a lot of space to maneuver in, is there, Jack?
There absolutely isn't, but I do have to say that it's been great driving by Greatorex, because if these other drivers who maybe aren't involved in the Fleming SimSport cars, or in the Fleming SimSport team, they need to definitely box. You know, you mentioned boxing in cycling, or they need to box in the Fleming SimSport cars, because they just seem so well organised, so dominant in terms of what they've got planned and their slingshot and their technique and everything like that, that the other drivers really need to make sure that they're sort of pinned in with that mid-front packs. They're not necessarily leading the way constantly, because they pretty much had the inside line for the entirety of this race, and that just makes everybody else have to take this high line, which can work, but it does make everything a little bit more difficult. So now we're seeing the other drivers working a little bit more together, a little bit more savvy, maybe getting used to this whole oval-style, Daytona-style race. We might actually be seeing them go 3 wide, no, 2 wide, and all of a sudden the Fleming SimSport cars are really dropping down the order.
Yeah, that's something we haven't seen yet this race now. Down into 5th place with the top machine of Anton Dupin, who's looking to the inside there, trying to just see if he can find a little bit of space. It's getting chaotic in the back here, as I think that's the number... What car is that? I was just about to say, is that the 99 machine? No, it's not. But Ian Roots is looking to unlap himself. Look at that, the 11 car here, up the boss himself of SimracersWorld. Is there just no way past, but you can see he's taken that fast repair. The car works perfectly for him, of course, that makes sense, and he's trying to find a way through on the Dynamixx car in front here. That's of course the 73 car of Sven Kalbert, who's been doing such a good job this race. Let's just see, of course there is a good point in trying to be ahead, trying to be the first guy who's a lap down, because if we do have another caution period, Ian Roots will be the guy to have that lucky dog. Oh, several cars almost gets extremely loose there on coming up towards the line, and that almost ended, or could have indeed ended in tears. But yet again, it didn't. Look at this Ryan Walker as well, Jacko. He's down in 8th position now. It's been a bit of a loss of position, but he's of course had this big incident as well. So I think he'll take it. Don't you think so?
Yeah, I think although we see him drop down the order quite quickly, he can just as easily get back up, and he's slotting in behind on that inside line behind Hendrik de Greve, who obviously we saw leading the race, will have been in the top 2, especially for a large portion, about 30 laps. He's now down in 7th place, so it can so easily change. Sam Bentham's been a very consistent driver at the top end so far. Sharkey and Sven Kalbert, are definitely, you know, trying to stake a claim, but they're not drivers we've seen at the beginning of this race, certainly sort of making a claim for the podium positions. Anton Dupin obviously down in 5th position now, so I don't think any of these leading drivers are really part of the same team, apart from obviously the Fleming SimSport guys.
Indeed, that's a good point. You see that team effort really paying dividends, at least earlier on, but they're finding themselves in a position where they're not able to really do that all that much about it, I think, in the end, because as we talked about earlier, boxed in, and that goes for all 3 Flemish SimSports cars, all part of the picture at the moment, you can see, as is the entirety of the field still. We haven't been green for that long. We're now 60 laps into the race. We have been going overall for 53 minutes, but I'd say I think we've been racing for probably 40 minutes of those 53, maybe a little bit less, as the 22 car picks up a little bit more of that outside barrier that could have ended in tears as well, but they did indeed manage to keep it all under control. And it's those little situations that are going to leave nerves torn around the field. I believe if you're further down the order, if you see someone having a moment, you're just crossing your fingers, hoping that he's going to be able to keep control of the car. Does it yet again here. And he is one of the lap cars as well. He's in 19th place at the moment. Roberto Motta here. He's actually the top runner of the cars who were a lap down. And so I'm just having to think. Is 3 laps down? No, he isn't. And Roberto Motta isn't actually a lap down, is he? It doesn't really make sense to me. Oh yes, he is. And Bran van Eften is actually the top guy from what I can see. And then there's another lap to Roberto Motta, Jochen Lennartz, and then another lap down to Ian Root. So he's in a tough spot at the moment. Here, back to the front runners. Sam Bentham, the 24 car, still leading Sven Calbert. Then Carl Sharkey, Greg Franks, Hendrik de Grave, and Austin Gretorix in 6th place. Kim Behait, who started so well alongside the entirety of the Flemish Sims. Once even look at the... Was that the 15 machine there? Almost just exiting the pit. Or what is that coming to a stop here? Is it a solo incident coming towards the pit lane? Braking, and just what happened there? I have to say I'm at a loss. Because, and this seems to be quite a bit of ways to go. Does he overshoot his pit box? He does as well. Well, a little less dramatic than it looked out on track a few moments ago. That is for sure. Back with the leading battle here. There's still a train of 2 white cars. And the third row, they're going 3 white. This might end in tears as well this time. Well, because they're getting very nervy. Look at the 92 machine. That is a big joke of a livery as well. The 22 car of Roberto Motta. Yet another kiss of the outside wall. And one has to wonder for how long this can go on before this goes wrong indeed. Because they're really hammering at it. Ryan Walker is some way down the order. He's in 9th place as well. He was really fighting for it for so long here. And the 13 car of Austin Gretorix still doing well, but the high flyer at the moment is Sam Bentham, who's gained 21 positions after starting all the way at the back, I think, running clear, staying clear of a lot of the incidents. But mind you, that the top driver at the moment, who's had 3 pit stops, well, someone they're off just as I go to look at the timing tower, just to see we have what I believe to be another yellow flag. So another caution period, and that's a big collision there, and that's going to be a huge one indeed.
As you said, how long can this go on with Motta touching the outside wall? And I think if we have another look again, he gets nudged into the wall. Massive moment. The number 22 then sideways in the road. Nothing he can do. So Roberto getting collected by, I think that was Bob Boland first and second time around. So let's see what happened. A car comes up and throws him into the outside wall. I think it's the number 13 that initiated the start of this big wreck. It was the 555 that ended up firing across the road. Then the number 14 comes in as well. Nothing much anybody can do. Good bits of avoidance driving here, there, and everywhere, but not what we like to see. And like you said, another caution for everybody. And I was looking forward to that. I was literally just sat back and watching it because it was like 14, 15 cars for the lead. And then sadly it did come to that. Everybody's now diving into the pit lane, catching up to the safety car. And it's Sven Calbert in the lead from Sam Bentham. 2 massive movers. The leader, Sven, has gained 16 positions. Sam Bentham has gained 20. And then Gregory Franks in 4th at the moment has gained 15 positions. So lots and lots of overtakes that have been carried out. But seeing that massive incident, it almost brings a tear to your eye. It was such a good little battle from everybody, and then it all went wrong.
Yeah, it certainly did. It was, but I just had a feeling that it was all getting very ambitious, especially around that mid part of the front pack, around positions, 6 through 12 or so. And I think it was also pretty much there where it all kicked off. I want to have a look at what happened to Ryan D. Walker as well. Maybe just try to take an onboard ride with him here. And let's see just what happens, because he's currently just driving along and all of a sudden he just gets collected. Absolutely nothing he can do about it. And such a shame. Ryan Walker yet again finding himself amidst the trouble without really having anything to do with it, apart from being at the wrong place at the wrong time indeed. And such is indeed the life of over racing here. As pit lane is open, and I think this time around everyone is in the pit lane. If I'm very much not mistaken, could be a few outliers, but for me it seems personally like everyone just jumped in there to get the pit stops done. Let's see. Oh, someone, look at that Ryan Walker. What is he doing? What is he doing? He's sideways in the pit lane. He's trying to get the car in. I think might be damage from his towing now. Oh, that's terrible for Ryan Walker indeed. And I'm just seeing if I can somehow find that on the timing tower, but there is so much information coming through that it's very, very hard to single out anything. But I really want to see what happened to Ryan D. Walker there for a moment, because that was less than lucky indeed.
I think this is just a little bit late for commentators' curse. I did say I was looking forward to seeing what Ryan could do. He'd done a great job up to the point, got caught up in some unlucky incidents, and sadly another there in the pit lane going up on the jack. So let's see what happened. I think he might have just slammed on the brakes after missing his pit box, and obviously the last thing he wants to do is reverse down the pit lane, so does the sensible thing and tows back to pit lane. So there's the pit box. You could see Dean Timms for year one in the pit box in front of him, and then another car behind him, so he might have just not been able to see his team waiting for him. He did take the tow back to the pit box. Go on, Hasse.
Yeah, but I'm just this was indeed after the tow, so he got a tow, fast repair, and off he went. He's now pretty much at the back of the field, but he might actually, yes. I say that because I'm pretty excited for the fact that it looks to me as if Ryan Walker has actually managed to come out on the lead lap, or has he? No, he has not managed to come out on the lead lap. So I was maybe celebrating. Just missed it, right? Hasn't he?
He's just got there.
He got it.
We look, he literally came out of the pit lane as the pack was about to pass. So I think he might have just managed to get onto the tail end. I think it's Jochen Lennert's the only driver, or the driver that is a lap down. Jochen Lennert's backwards. Everybody from there is a lap down.
Oh yeah, indeed. So yet another calamity here on lap 66 now, as we're waiting to go green. Yet again, the pack is indeed bunched up. I think the safety car, the safety truck, I need to get used to saying that as well, but the safety truck's cars are the lights, and the cars in turn now ready to go green and to race yet again. And it seems just every time that the drivers are just getting used to what's happening around them, it all comes crashing down as someone tries to take a bit of space that just isn't there, pushed into the wall, and consequences are indeed dire. And as we've had everyone into the pits, it's everyone on a full tank now, with Sven Calvert leading Carl Sharkey, and then Kippe Hayde, Hendrik de Grave, and Anton Dupin for Flemish Sim Sports lining up there. Off goes the truck, and we're about to go green yet again. And there it is. So a late mover there from Sven Calvert, Carl Sharkey, trying to hold his position, but on the outside there is Kippe Hayde, who's trying to get there. Plenty of space for the teammates of the Flemish Sim Sports car to move in there. And then we're of course watching along as well to see if everyone just makes it through here, but it seems to be very orderly every time we get the race underway. I shouldn't say too much, but actually there's a bit of dodgy running there on the inside line. I think that's around Luca Becker in the 44 machine. And it seems to me it's also been a case of good or bad luck, whether you've actually been able to make it through some of these wrecks here on the lead lap. Because as you can see, Ryan Walker... Oh, as I say, Ryan Walker! I wanted to... Oh, and it's been a huge wreck yet again. And how that's not a yellow flag, I have absolutely no clue. I'll see if we can get another look at it. He's back here.
Back to yellow.
Oh, we are back to yellow indeed. Well, that didn't last long at all, did it? And it's gone from bad to worse for Ryan D. Walker, that's for sure. Oh, that's why. So just a short second, and we should be able to have a better look at what happened in that incident. Oh, and I'm afraid Ian Roots has had a problem as well, and might have been involved with whatever happened here.
I think he was involved big time, to be honest, and I think Ian Roots, after all the bad luck he's had today, organising this special event for SimracersWorld and all these drivers, he's probably slightly regretting it at the moment because it's not gone his way at all. I'm sure he'll be enjoying watching the broadcast back, but maybe not his own race back. He's now down in 23rd position, a good 3 or 4 laps down on everybody else, and there's just a huge incident. You can see Greatorex getting involved as well. He was running towards the front of the order, and you can just see here's the initial incident between Greatorex and that's
Ryan Walker.
Ryan Walker, of course. Just getting turned around. It looked like Walker just tried to go for the higher line. Greatorex was already there, and just collected everybody else in the process.
Yeah, the 14 car getting caught up in it as well. That's not lucky whatsoever. That's Ivo Carrera, the number 20 machine, getting caught up as well. This is all, and you know what's even worse for this type of incident to have happened at this moment is that it's all happening to the bottom runners at the field. So not for the top runners, but for the drivers who already was already lapped and who was already stricken by bad luck incidents or whatever. Now it's just become even worse. And as we were just cheering for Ryan Walker to have made it onto the lead lap, this happens, and it certainly isn't going to be happening again. Now, I don't know if we've had anyone pitting in this time around to fill it up. I think Gavin Halls might have been the one driver to do so, but it seems there's a bit of damage to that car as well. Either it's damage, either it's just the dirt coming up to the front end of that car. Ivo Carrera, look at the 14 machine. That doesn't look good at all, and neither does the number 20 car. That's of course the car of Dynamixx Simulators boss Jochen Lennertz, and Jochen is, I think, not gonna be too happy. How can they? What? You must be asking what he's done to make all the other drivers treating so disrespectfully. With that Godfather decal at the back end of the car. Here's Carl Sharkey, who faces out for Strasse Motorsport, the Brit, in the number 7 machine. Has done well for himself. Actually, Sven Calvert, not the highest riser. That in the moment goes to Sam Bentham, who also came from very far away back. Greg Franks has gained a lot of positions. Same for John Tusting and Bram van Hoefden as well. We're 70 laps into this race. We've been running for 1 hour and 7 minutes now, so just over an hour's worth of racing having gone by here. And how would you sum up what's happened so far, Jack?
I'd say it's a mixed bag, really. We've seen lots and lots of close racing and lots of almost trustful racing. We saw the Flemish guys battling nose to tail for the lead, not just for the lead, but for the lead of the bottom row and the lead of the top row as well. So I think that it's nice to see that. Obviously, we've had our fair share of incidents as well. Lots of different driving. We're now looking at Bod Boland. This is when we were still green. Up to John Tusting for bottom racing. Here we go. So John Tusting in the number 21 machine, back to Kasper Neustrom, and good avoidance driving from the Swede. You can see Ryan Walker in the middle there, not left with much space. I think he slowly started to creep up the road into the wall hard. Kasper throws the car to the bottom of the road and just manages to get past that incident. So good driving from Kasper, but I think possibly this lap passer we are going to go back green. There we go, safety truck peeling off.
It is indeed peeling off, and that means Sven Calvert this time around is going to lead him, and he does so with a... Well, sometimes we've seen him go a little bit earlier, and it was a great success for the Flemish Sim Sports cars as someone just tries to send it around the outside there onto the outside lane. I believe that Greg Franks with a great opportunistic move there, getting a good launch as they go on to green. But Flemish Sim Sports still very much up there. Sven Calvert for Dynamixx in the lead at the moment. Oh, and already here someone's on the inside there, getting a little bit squirrely, as Luca Becker was losing a couple of positions. And Lean Tim's Evo Correra, look at that car. The 14 machine certainly picked up a lot of damage there. And it looks like there isn't really any fast repairs left to be thrown about. So, an interesting situation here, being back to green. Very much so the situation that it's really impossible to call what exactly is going to happen as they go 3 wide there. I think that's... Is that the Greven? No, that's Anton Dupin, of course, who's gone to the top, to the high side of the track, trying to find a way through on Sam Bentham in front. It really wasn't going to work out, ever was it? And those little kinks, and when you just seem to nudge the wheel, suddenly that can cause all sorts of problems for the cars behind.
Tell you what, Sven Kalper and Carl Sharkey are doing a very good job to keep the Fleming Sim Sport cars behind as well, because all 3 of them are ganging up, but against these other 4 drivers. But the other 4 drivers are taking it well. They're taking it on the chin. Hopefully we don't see any more safety cars for the next couple of laps, a handful of laps, shall we say. We probably will see 1 more, 2 more before the end of the race. The unfortunate way that this oval circuit seems to be going, but yeah, at the moment, Sharkey and Calvert, who's gained 15 positions. Here's Gregory as well. He's in 3rd place. He's gained 16 positions. So 3 wide, potentially for the race lead. 3 wide for 3rd place, certainly. The number 4 car of Kim Bayhet is on the inside, and that looks like he's gotten through to 2nd place. Carl Sharkey's dropped down. He's now side by side. They've calmed down slightly, but not all that much.
This is Greg Franks, the biggest loser there. Sorry, Hasse, but Greg Franks, he jumped out into the outside lane. He had help to start off with, but then nobody followed him up there. You'd have thought Ian Roots might give him a hand up on the top lane. He's giving him the room to come back in. There we go. So Ian Roots now letting his teammate back in. I'm not sure whether he wants to take it though, because Greg Franks, I think he's still out there. No, he has now come down and secured his position on the outside lane. But look at this, Carl Sharkey still managing to fend off everybody behind. It's a swarm of NASCAR Cup cars trying to get into the lead. If I look over to my left hand side, it's 16 cars all fighting for the lead at the moment. We've got to think Carl Sharkey has got to know that all of these cars trying to get by now. Sam Bentham alongside and in front as they break the timing beam. Anton Dupin trying to follow him through, and look at the run Gregory Franks has got. He's trying to work his way all the way around the outside. I think the outside line might work to start off with, but then there we go. Everybody drops back once again. So it's very much, 12 of one or 6 of one and half a dozen of the other, isn't it, Hasse?
Yeah, indeed. It's and this is a free-for-all in a way that, of course, we have a couple of teams that are trying to work together, but in a way that us people who are used to commentating on. Oh, is that Roots who collected the wall? And I'm afraid we're gonna go yellow again. Oh, right, the number 6 car is involved as well, and I think, yes, we have gone to yellow flag. Look at just behind the cars here. Jorn van den Akker very much a part of this. Let's see if we can catch the glimpse of what happened here from the view of Gavin Hall, because he was directly involved with this situation. There's the just touch. Oh, it's Verheid, and it's Stuart Musselwhite as well as... Is it Verheid? I'm not really sure, actually. That's the 15 car. It's Van Hoornacker, of course, Kurt Van Hoornacker, who was involved in that incident, as yet again back to yellow flag, I'm afraid, back to another caution period, and this time around we might have driven for just about long enough that some of the drivers might be thinking, I'm gonna go and get a pit stop done by now. All the top runners have been in 3 times in a couple of cars. Bud Bowl and John Tusting, they've been in 4 times. Then behind them, Dean Timms has only been in twice. And then Gavin Hall's been in 5 times. So it's quite different. It isn't really able to make out a clear pattern of any type of advantageous strategy here. And it's so hard to call just for how long it's going to be running before we see another yellow flag period here. Carl Sharkey, Calbert Bentham, all seems to dip in here. So Hendrik de Grave goes on for Flemish Sim Sports. And then Dean Timms, Luca Becker seems to be the only cars staying out at the moment. And then perhaps as well a few of the cars that were lapped, trying to gain back some of that. Although I don't think they're going to make it at the pace. They're going to be lapping behind the safety truck. And now last time around I asked Jack of a quick summary of what happened. I'm going to do the same to you this time around, Jacko.
Yeah, I mean it's been a tight race really. We've seen sort of glimpses of fantastic battles and sort of people getting into the rhythm and really seen the tactics of oval circuit racing and Daytona specifically, obviously being a massive racing event. But this is the sort of thing we unfortunately see a little bit too much of, I'd say, this race. You're always expecting to see a few safety trucks. But yeah, a little bit too much contact here and there. It's just people who have sort of been experienced in oval racing, I think. A lot of these drivers, you mentioned before, you see in the GT packages for SRW and quite a few other races series as well. Maybe they're just not used to the sort of oval nature of racing. And, you've got to be really used to these cars as well, because to sort of handle them around 300 kilometers an hour for 200 laps, you've got to know exactly how they're going to feel, how the tyres are going to affect them, the degradation, the different temperatures, because obviously we've gone dark now at Daytona. And if you just don't know that, it's just the tiniest little bit of inconsistency can cause a massive crash, unfortunately.
Indeed, we've seen it on multiple occasions already. Also, a couple of cars visibly carrying damage still. I think you've got to think, does it make sense to keep on running? Or would it be smarter to go in for repairs? Of course, if it's the case that the fast repairs have already been used, we don't necessarily have much choice in the end here, as a few cars now being ordered to the back of the line as to avoid too much confusion. And at the same time, I have seen it as well, the lights have gone out yet again on the safety truck. And of course here from a crowdless Daytona, immersion, hashtag immersion. So we're having, is that the lucky dog moving through the middle or whatever's happening there? Not quite sure if that's, what to say, just Sven Kalbert gaining his rightful position or whatever's happening. Someone is coming up through the middle there. It's going to be Dean Timms, I think, leading him off alongside Hendrik de Grave. It's actually going to be de Grave on the inside, controlling the get-go. But with Dean Timms at the front yet again, doing what he did earlier. But last time around, he lost position quite quickly there from the head of affairs. So let's see if it's going to be the same way around this time. On the second row, we've got Luca Becker and Anton Dupin. Then Sven Kalbert, Carl Sharkey, Kim Beheid, Jorn van den Akker, Sam Bentham, Brian van Uiten, and Gregory Franks in 11th place now. But I'm expecting Franks to come up with something here. He seems to just have it at this oval race, and he's done very well for himself so far. One thing I would certainly love to have would be a camera placed on the safety truck.
I think there used to be a way you could do that. You used to have to view the safety truck, albeit only in our racing. I'm not sure whether we have it available to us on the SDK service, but now Hendrik de Grave punches the throttle, gets the race back underway, and look at all that time Dean Timms has lost. A good start from Hendrik de Grave. He does have the help of Luca Becker to push him along as well, and Dean Timms now down into 4th position. So the year one driver losing another position, and possibly even more, because you can see the number 4 Flemish Sim Sports machine trying to work his way up. So Kim Beheid is on the inside. Carl Sharkey diving along as well, and that's Luca Becker diving down to the bottom end, getting his way right back to pretty much where he started. So all that hard work he's just had and all those positions he's just gained, they've all come undone again. Any idea?
Yeah, it could just be a question of strategy. Oh, someone's had, I think Carl Sharkey's had a problem. I'm afraid. Because I saw him tumbling down the order all of a sudden here.
Blinked in and out.
Oh, it was just a blink. Oh. Because you don't always see what happens. So when you see someone tumbling down the timing screen there, you just instantly think, oh no, it's happened again. But luckily, just a scare this time around. I think some of those cars that didn't pit in, of course, that's gonna throw it all into a bit of a mishmash of strategies, and what exactly is happening can sometimes be a little unclear. So I think some of the drivers who are now further down the order, but who are running strong before and know that they have the pace, the skills, the composition of character, you might say, to be up there at the head of affairs, they just have to arm themselves with a good deal of patience, because if they can survive being just at the back of a pack like this for long enough, they might be the ones to gain from it in the end. But it all in turn comes down to how long are we going to be able to stay green here. And you do see the pack is indeed diminishing as cars are being stricken by these incidents here. Lap 81. So just under 20 laps away from the halfway marker, which is of course going to be 250 miles here. It's Hendrik de Graaf. Dean Tim's still there on the outside. He came back actually, and it's bunched up together from a start where it was actually stretching out. You just see how much impact the slipstream is indeed having there on the outside. I think it's Anton Dupin who's looking racy indeed. Let's go on board, Jack. Tell us what you see at the moment.
And now on the run up towards turn 1, you can see Anton Dupin tucked in the draft of Dean Tim's ahead, but the outside line slowly starting to come undone for everybody by the looks of it. And you can see now Carl Sharkey trying to work his way up and past. He's got the position made on Anton Dupin, and the door won't open for Dean Tim's to squeeze down. You can see Anton Dupin trying to pressure the inside into possibly slowing down. And you did mention side draft at the start of this stream, Jacko, and side draft, from what I've heard, it can work with you or against you, more so in open wheel and IndyCar, but in NASCAR it does play an effect as well. Like you say, you can work together by being basically glued side by side and punching a bigger hole in the air, which obviously helps everybody behind as well. But if you are the car ahead, if you slowly start to squeeze over about half a car's width before the car is alongside you, it pushes all that dirty air that is hitting the front of your car over your car and then hitting the rear wing of the car behind, which almost slows them down. So you've got to make sure if you're going to make the move, all that momentum that you've carried in the draft stays with you. So I think at the moment, looking at it now, the Flemish Sim Sports cars are trying to do pretty much the same to all the cars behind, just sitting there or thereabouts and keeping all that dirty air flowing off their car all over the cars behind.
Yeah, it's just yet another thing to think about in this sort of oval race. Obviously, is not just the fact you're doing 200 laps, you're doing 200 laps side by side and people trying not to hit them. And then you're doing 200 laps side by side of people trying to beat them as well. So it's all very, very tactical. I mean, we've said a lot that, you know, you're doing over 300 kilometers an hour through not only the straights but the embankment. You can see the difference that Gosling's got here on the driver ahead of him. You know, the fact that you've got to think about, you need to get close enough to the car side by side to sort of slow them up and push some of the dirty air that's coming off your front bonnet, which obviously spills out to the side as well. That's what creates drag from the slipstream to the side. So that's all a big contact with the Fleming Simsport drivers at the front end of the field there. That's Behating Hendrik de Graaf. That's could have been a really bad off there. Hasse got very, very much away with that one, didn't they?
Yeah, that was huge indeed. That could have been much, much, much worse. Let's just see. I think it's the 21
it was
car.
just before that one.
John Tusting there. Yeah, indeed. They had a big touch. John Tusting touched the wall as well. And was all about to kick off. But you know what? They're still running. They're still racing. And I think they pretty much all got away with it. That must have been a huge scare for the teammates making contact there. We saw it for the SimracersWorld team earlier on there with Ian Root in the car of Stuart Musselwhite, just with a slight touch, and that was enough to break it all up here. Now it's Kim Behaid leading Hendrik de Graaf, and then Sven Calbert, so still a Belgian and even a Flemish 1, 2, 3 here as Calbert goes to the high line. Of course, that's not Sven Calbert, that is indeed the car of Carl Sharkey on the outside there, trying to get around here. Dean Tim's trying to follow him along, and yet again, they're going into two-file, which does happen for a lot of these races, to be fair. So it's not like it's anything particularly special, but of course it does hugely increase already here the incident risk and speak about it when they start going 3 wide. Here as a gap opens there to Tims, I'm sorry, going very wide as well. I think it was into turn 2. But, or was that then 3 or 4? That seems to be, that'll confuse me forever. Sam Bentham, you mentioned it earlier, Jack, as well. He was doing so well. He was at the front of affairs. Now he finds himself in 9th place. And even though it's still a net gain of 13th position, he really has to know that it's all right here. It seems to lose speed. Whatever happened, it's not necessarily good. Johan van den Akker tries to go around the outside here in the 44 machine. And up ahead, it's now Carl Sharkey.
Yeah, so Carl Sharkey now back up to the front. We know Carl Sharkey is very, very quick in the 911 Cup cars, going off what is Season 1 of the Porsche Club GB Sim Racing Series, and now Season 2. We know he's very quick also in the GTEs as well, from the GT Pro and Evo Series that we provide also here on SimracersWorld TV. And it turns out he's quite quick in a NASCAR as well, because the Strasser Porsche Sport driver still leading the way, albeit with the attentions of Dean Tims, with Anton Dupin pushing him along as well. So lots of help for everybody if you do decide to take the high line, but it looks like for the moment Carl Sharkey is safe where he is. Everybody moving around trying to put each other off, and I think for the moment, yeah, it looks like everybody's keeping it clean. Who was that on the outside trying to work their way down? I think that was Anton Dupin trying to work his way back in behind all of his teammates.
Yeah, let's just see there on the outside, the 16 car. Oh, and look at that, yet another huge incident. And this time around, it's Van Honacker as well. But more importantly, the car of Sam Benton, I'm afraid, picked up in that incident. Big time indeed. And let's just see what happened here. So it's actually the other way around. Bentham collects Van Honacker, who becomes a passenger. Wasn't really able to see what happened before that. But just try and have an outside glance. Jacko, tell us what you see in this incident.
Yeah, it just looks like a couple of drivers all trying to go for the same amount of space. One driver going from the high line, trying to tuck down into the low. Maybe just didn't get a word of what is on the left-hand side. And a few drivers just getting collected. I mean, I think we see one. I think the yellow car was about to make contact there. 284. That is Voinetven. Sorry if I'm saying that wrong again. Trying to take it quite quickly, but he's just spanned straight into the pit. So at least if he's got a quick repair left, he may be able to take that one. But yeah, back under yellows. And as I said, safety car breeds safety cars. And when you're racing this close with unfamiliar equipment, it's probably always going to happen.
So another caution period is upon us with a big incident. Again, we're watching the pit lane because we're actually expecting the cars to come in relatively soon. I'm thinking the pit lane might just still be closed. Or is it open here at least? Someone's coming in. Yeah, we have the entire field. Look at them rolling into the pit lane. Indeed, there's Sharkey, Behave, Tims. I think actually every single one of these drivers looking to get whatever they need done by this chance here.
Yeah, just to add to your point, Hasse, Van Honacker has now left the session by the looks of it. He is out of the race, so I don't think we'll see much more from him. We saw his look start to turn, start to change. He was getting back up there. Now's the rush. I think Carl Sharkey has been jumped by Kimber Hayt in the pit lane. So look at this. Now the number 4 has inherited what was the lead on the road. Everybody's now flooding out of the pit lane once again. And I think if we were able... There we go. So Kimber Hayt right back in front. Very careful not to overspeed in the pit lane because these cars, as previously mentioned, don't have the pit limiter. But everybody leaving the pit lane. And just going through some of the names, it makes you realise that some of these guys might be going into the unknown as well, just as much as we are. Because a lot of the names on the left-hand side are also in a lot of the other series we provide here on SimracersWorld TV, whether it's the old TCR series, Formula 3 series, GT Pro and Evo, possibly even some of the Porsche series as well. It shows that they've decided, yeah, you know what, let's give NASCAR a go, and it's a pretty big hit in more ways than one. We've seen lots of hits in the war, but a very big grid as well. And somebody I was surprised to see in was the guy that's in P18 at the moment, Bram van Uitven. He's very active in the GT series, and he's very active in the chat even when he's not racing. And it's great to see that he's decided to hop into a NASCAR this afternoon.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's generally really good to see that it's such a good combination of drivers coming across from the different series they're usually taking part in here on SimracersWorld to race in something that is just very much different. Because mind you, a lot of these drivers hugely experienced on the road side, and just shows how different it is and how much of a different approach you need to take. Because also I think a lot of these drivers used to road racing are seeing someone just right on the side and you just instinctively think, I'm gonna get past, I'm gonna get through, I need to get in front. And that isn't always just the best strategy, at least from what we've seen here tonight. And then of course another thing to go by is the huge level of concentration needed to keep everything straight and in order, which we've also seen on several occasions, so to say, already here tonight, or this afternoon as it is, even though it is now night in the sim, I believe. It's still, of course, the mid-hours here of afternoon, at least Central European time. It's 2 o'clock Greenwich Mean Time, which means it's 3 o'clock on British summertime. And to quote the good old Murray Walker, it's a lot of other times at different places around the world. Dean Timms in the 46 machine won't find himself all the way at the front of affairs. And let's see if we can catch a glimpse of the truck. Jack, was that the lights turned off?
We'll have to have a look. I think if we look forward from Kimber Haight, we might be able to see that one as the camera continues to pan around. There we go. So the lights are no longer on the safety truck. They have been extinguished, so we are going green this time, and still keeping it nice and slow, backing the pack up 2 by 2 by 2, all in the background, going on to what will be lap 92. As we go green again, punches the throttle, builds that gap already. I wouldn't be surprised if we see Carl Sharkey slowly start to blend down into the bottom lane. He's thinking about it. He's crossed the start-finish line now, so there we go. It is open for him to do so, down into the bottom lane. So Carl Sharkey has the best chance to get back up towards the front. He will have the draft assistance, unlike Bjorn van den Akker on the outside in the number 44 machine. I say that he's bleeding down into the inside. There we go. So the top 2, or the top 4, all now on the bottom row. But Dean Timms deciding to be a lone horse, but he has been joined by Carl Sharkey now, who's pulled out to the outside, chopped across the nose of Dean Timms, getting the push off of Dean Timms, as well as that overtake, or as well as that draft and the momentum that he got from that overtake. So Carl Sharkey now back at the front of affairs, back in the lead, the number 7 leading the number 4, leading the number 46. I think we're going to get a replay of the start, or a replay of the overtake, Aston.
Yeah, it's a replay of the overtake there. Carl Sharkey on the outside, as you see the Flemish Sim Sports car just disappearing ever so shortly. I think a little bit of a bad run there, perhaps, from the number 4 machine of Kimber Haight. But back to green we are. Dean Timms making good of a bad start from earlier on, but he's a little bit too high up on the high line, and he has to take care with cutting across there, because if the car in behind decides that the gap is wide enough to go into, and all of a sudden he cuts across, then yet again we're going to have carnage, we're going to have heartbreak, and that is not what we want to see. But back to green we are. Here is Paul Gosling in 11th place in the number 17 car to make that 10th place, as he's on and around the car of Anton Dupin down in 9th place. A little bit of a surprise there. Greg Franks is in 6th position with Bart Boland there up in 4th. Kimber Haight 3rd. Dean Timms and Carl Sharkey still leading the way as Carl Sharkey around the inside line, as it tends to happen with the leader here. In turn, it is the quickest line when judged on lap time as well. Last lap where all of these drivers were into the 45s as well, so good pace being put in here. As we're going to have a look at Sam Benton there as well in 9th position. Still surviving pretty well from being caught up in an accident not too long ago, I have to say here. As Kimber Haight gets a big run. Dean Timms swings to the outside. That's going to open the door on the inside there for Bjorn van den Akker, who in turn moves up into 3rd position. And there in behind is Sven Kalbert now up into 5th. Everybody's getting a little bit squirrely there. As Dean Timms looking a little loose there in his car compared to all the other machines. And as you can hear on my voice, the action really is yet again picking up here from the front end of the field at the Dynamixx Daytona 500.
It absolutely is, and that was an absolutely great move as well by Kimber Haight, because he was in 3rd place, and Dean Timms, who was on the outside, and Behate just saw a little gap that he could try and nip round. So he not only got ahead of Dean Timms, who was on the outside, so he went from in to out, he then had the slingshot to then go past Carl Sharkey, who's now taking the outside line. We can see from Vranska's on board, sorry. Yeah, they're going 2 by 2 now. Carl Sharkey trying to carry that momentum on the outside. A couple of the Fleming Supersport cars, but they have been split up now as more drivers have entered the fray for the lead of the race.
Indeed, this is very much an open battle. This could be going anywhere, indeed, because from what we've seen so far, I think none of us would want to make any assumptions on who's going to end up on top of this kerfuffle here. It's still a big old battle, and pretty much anyone still on the lead lap could still end out on top of things, and that's certainly one of the charms of oval racing here. Is Greg Franks battling for 6th place, but in turn, in reality, he's actually battling for the lead, because he's only a few tenths, if even so, if even that's a tenth of a second from him to the leader. I guess that is, but it's not much more than that. It's hugely impressive, the distances they can race from one another, and that's in the proximity, actually what I mean, because they're so close. Is that... Wondering whether that's Stuart Musselwhite at the end of this pack, as well as Ian Roots trying to keep up as well. But the car of Musselwhite, as you can see, has picked up a bit of damage there. He's on the same lap though as Roberto Mota, who picks up the outside wall. That's going to lead on Musselwhite quite easily. We're going to look away because that looks like it could be too much. And the commentator's curse could really be coming into effect. Something we don't want to see happening here. It's still Carl Sharkey. And Jack, you sounded like you had something to say a few moments ago.
Yeah, I was going to say the track is getting cooler now as well. Track temperature is 18 degrees, so the cars will be feeling a lot more comfortable. You can see it on the right-hand side of your screen. Track temperature 18 degrees, ambient temperature 17 degrees, and at the top of just below the date, you can see we are just about to tick past 7 o'clock in the evening, and we are now in the inky dark hours of the night, so everybody is now getting into the groove. The track will only get colder, so the cars will run a little bit better, possibly get a little bit more power output out of your car as well, and obviously the tyre degradation will start to minimize. We're almost at the halfway point of this race, crossing the line this time by to go on to lap 99. So we're almost halfway there, and from what we've seen, it's starting to pick up, starting to get cleaner and cleaner and cleaner as the drivers get used to the car and get used to each other, racing in this close proximity. Like you mentioned, Hasse, you can see Carl Sharkey swapping for the lead every single lap, almost every single corner with Behate, and that is why you can see just how close they are, almost 3 wide in the background. I think that was Sam Bentham looking to the very outside, not willing to make the move yet on Gregory Franks, but look at this now. It's 3 by 3 by 3, almost 3 by 3 by 3 by 3, all for the lead. If we look over to the left-hand side, I think that is, what, 14 cars for the lead, including the extra stragglers running away at the back as we come across the line, and we are now halfway through the Dynamixx Daytona 500.
Indeed we are, and that's taken 1 hour and 37 minutes. So judging by that, I think it's just over 3 hours to get through, but I have a feeling that it's going to be a little more fluid from here on as well. As you just said, Jack, the drivers do seem to be getting more and more used to it. As we say that, look at the juggling around for position here, and it's all getting a little bit sketchy, it seems, every time they start to swerve from left to right, because those movements. Oh, and who's that on the outside? That's Hendrik de Graven with a small touch at the wall there. Not going to be enough for us to be able to pick it back, but I think you saw it as well. And he lost clear track position there. Someone's on the inside as well. I think that's Sven Calbert, who's losing big speed there. He needs to have to get himself out of the racing line, and he's onto the grass. Sven Calbert, and he's going to lose it, and I'm afraid there's going to be another caution period. Oh, he just about kept it. Let's have another look. Jacko, whew. Tell us what you see there, Wade. I'm going to call it up here.
Well, I see a heart-racing moment for any driver, spectator or commentator, I'm afraid. He goes to the inside here, Sven Calbert, and it's always so difficult, especially on such a steep incline, to get back on the circuit. He goes to the dives to the inside, and we are on another caution period. So the grass is green, the sky is dark, and we're under yellow flags, unfortunately. So Sven Calbert obviously just sitting there, and I'm not sure if he was able to get back to the pits. But once you're on that sort of level line, even that sort of the start-finish corner, which is a lot less banked than the rest of the corners, it's so difficult to then get back up onto the racing line. And these cars don't like flat pieces of land, so if you try and turn through that infield, that's really difficult to do as well in these cars. So no wonder that Sven ended up with a bit of a spin.
What a big shame there for Sven Calvert. And actually, this looks like the less dramatic of the incidents that actually managed to pull out a caution period here, because he actually didn't have too much contact with the wall, and it was pretty much a one-car incident in the end. And though a lot of cars was pretty close to getting caught up in it, they managed not to. So just as we were talking about it, back we are to a caution period, which is, of course, a little bit of a shame. I have a little bit of a surprise for our viewers here to take us through the
Oh no.
Well, what are you saying, oh no, for, Jack? Let me hear you. What's on your mind? You know what's coming.
I know what you're like, and every single time we even mention that we're going to Daytona, like if we're looking at the GT Pro, or even looking at any single series, if Daytona's on the calendar, Hasse breaks out into what I can only assume is his version of Susan Boyle about singing the song about Daytona, and I hope the chat don't have to put up with that, but I'm guessing that's what you've got lined up, isn't it, Hasse?
I'm not going to sing it, but I'm going to play it.
I'm looking forward to this now.
Sadly, it's only the three of us are the three guys who are not hearing it, and then everyone's watching the stream is indeed hearing the wonderful theme of the good old Sega arcade machine. It was Daytona, USA. We have everyone just rolling into the pits yet again, just trying to make sure that that they don't get caught out by it, and that I think is a pretty good point to make. That well, rather do it now than not, I guess. So Luca Becker seems to be the race leader now as we go back to the live feed of actual pictures of the cars running around here. Look with the blimp. Still the lights were on as far as I could see there. Let's hop on to the nose. Jack, maybe you can tell us. Yeah, lights are still on. And so we'll be behind the truck for another lap at least before getting the race underway yet again.
So everybody leaving the pit lane. One thing that I do want to bear in mind is Ivo Correa is still in the pit lane as the pack's on its way. So much like how pit entry can be closed for the first lap of caution, the pit exit can be closed as well, because you don't want to release a car into the full mainstream pack. So whether Ivo Correa has then got to wait at the end of pit lane, I don't know. But looking at it, as the pack's now about to cross the start-finish line for the 104th time of asking, whether he has to wait, I'm not 100% sure. He's still sat in the pit lane. He's been in his pit lane, or in the pit lane, for 2 minutes. He's been in his pit box for 1 minute and 40, so quite a sizable amount of time. So I think even if he did want to go, at this point he wouldn't be able to.
Yeah, that's a very good point indeed. So seemingly caught up on it there. Sven Calvert has now had 5 pit stops, which means that no matter what, in a good position in terms of fuel. Jorn van den Akker has moved up quite well. Interestingly, the 2 leaders now has come up respectively 17 and 15 positions up through the field here. But of course, at this point in time in the action here, anything could have happened to get us where we are at this current moment. Remember Bart Boland, when he was on pole position, we haven't exactly seen a lot of the Manx-men after those first couple of incidents. But he's back there, he's still at the lead lap, so you know what, he could very much still be in with a shout here, the number 12 car. He did have some damage at some point as well, but I think the fast repairs done him good. And he's still able to keep up Of course, he should very well be able to keep up with the pace of the field here behind the pace car, but in general as well.
Yeah, it looks like the lights have gone out on the pace car, so we've got 15 drivers all on the lead lap, and as Hasse was saying, we could be seeing any of them trying to challenge for the race lead, couldn't we? We have our sort of usual suspects, but we're about to get going again on the Daytona 500, sponsored by Dynamixx, of course, on the SRW page. So here we go again. Luca Becker goes relatively early, and Van der Acker as well has gone very quickly as well. So all of a sudden the outside line has lost out big time.
Yeah, this time around the Flemish Sim Sports cars really quick to get off it. And also leading teammate Hendrik de Grave in the number 8 car was down in 10th place. Look at that on the inside though. Luca Becker almost losing it. And that's going to open the door for Anton Dupin, Johan van den Akker. They're going to go too wide here. And all of a sudden, as I say it, I'm proven very much wrong. Because who's in the lead now? 1 and 2. Well, almost. We're battling for it. Flemish Sim Sports, who's been the trendsetters, the tone setters, the maestros, if you will, of this race so far.
Yeah, they've been absolutely flying, working well as a team. They had a bit of a sticky period between sort of laps 50 and 100. They seem to be back on course now to make it 3 wide for the race lead. That's probably not what was in the game plan. They're trying to take the 2 lines and lead them both. The driver on the very outside, I think, is Baransk, and he has unfortunately sort of conceded that. No, he's still going for the very outside, but it's clearly not the faster line. He hasn't got any kind of drag ahead of him. But now the Fleming Sim Sport cars, yeah, there we go. He now tucks back into the number 99 car. The Sim Sport guys, the Fleming Sim Sport guys, sorry, have now got control of this race, and this is exactly the game plan they wanted. They probably wanted their number 8 Hendrik de Grave up there with them as well. But there's a big off, and that 46 car of Dean Timms has been collected. A few of the drivers now getting side by side, unfortunately rubbing. And here we go. Here's another caution for you, Hasse.
Yeah, that's the question, because I don't think we've seen the flag come out yet. I think personally that we're still green. Yet to see the flag come out. John Tusting was involved in that incident before. I'm afraid that was Sven Kalbert as well. Look at that there, the 7 car almost getting involved, and the 94 machine sent into the pit lane. Here is John Tusting. He was actually avoiding it pretty well in the end there, Sven Kalbert. Look at the contact, that's a net code. So it's a net code between Dean Timms and Sven Kalbert that for me sets off this entire incident. Because very much possible that they made a small contact there, but it wasn't evident on my screen at least. It looked like, as Chaz once put it, that horrible N-word we never want to hear. And certainly other horrible N-words we don't want to hear either, but it's a good pun. Anyways, Kimpy Hayde leading him on as we're still green here. That might be a little bit of a surprise here. Oh, that's Sam Bentham. He's up there now again, and the 24 machine has to be careful. Same goes for Greg Ranks. These are some of the racy boys now at the head of the field, and they're actually breaking away for the first time in a very long time, because that little bit of a moment before has dislodged a couple of the drivers here. Carl Sharkey off the bat here, but Bolin got through it, and he's in 7th place now, alongside Carl Sharkey, who's down there. So that is a lap car, the other one's there. So a 7-car battle for the lead at the moment, of course. This is by no means anything final, anything... oh, who's off there to the inside now? I'm gonna have a look there. I think that's Thijs van den Bergen. Van den Bergen, yeah, just gets a slide on onto the grass and just doing pretty well not to come up onto the traffic. But look at that, a big bounce, and that, I'm afraid, Jack, don't you think that could have done some serious damage to the engine?
Yeah, I know that that these cars are very, very fragile, with them being a pretty much just a cage underneath that carbon fiber and steel monocoque that they've got placed over the top. One of the main differences is literally the engine. They're all producing very, very similar power figures. It's just who is the manufacturer of the engine is one of the main differences. But yeah, possibly it could have caused a bit of damage to the underside of the car, and possibly the aero as well. I know from driving other cars here on the RS in service, for example, a couple of weeks back, driving the new LMP2 at Monza, I ended up missing the second chicane, outbraked myself, hit the curb, and then going into the closing stages of the race, my engine just blew up because I clearly damaged the underside of the car. to such an extent, and I think that could be something that we've got to bear in mind for Thies van den Berg, because we know overheating can be an issue in these cars, especially if you're in a pack like this. But look at this now, 8 for the lead. It's come down from 18. We've managed to lose 10 cars between now and then, with the help of a couple of cautions, but still 8 cars for the lead, and still all 3 Flemish Sim Sports cars all in this battle. And that previous incident we were looking at, the number 13, I think it was Austin Greatorex that got caught up in that. The save that he managed to keep, I'm not sure how the car managed to stay pointing the right way. Some lots of twisting of the controls for sure, but somehow he kept his car pointing in the right direction, which I think also assisted the race staying green.
Yeah, Dean, that's certainly something we like to see. Although at the same time, it's also nice having the cars at the back, the drivers at the back, not getting too heavily impacted from the incidents that occur. Look at that! That's Sam Bentham, I think, almost making contact to the car on the outside of him. And that's the car of Hendrik de Grave. And as we go about here, they're about to lap the car of the boss himself, of Dynamixx. Indeed, it is Johan Lennartz. That is a stricken machine as well, if ever I've seen one. And it just goes to show how atrocious it's been for some of the drivers, at least. It's been a very, very, very tough show.
Yeah, it definitely has been lots and lots of contact throughout the order. Kimber Haight leading the way now though from Anton Dupin, and then Gregory Vrangs, Jorn van den Akker trying to stay within touch as well on the lower line. You can see though Gregory Vrangs still running that outside line, making that work. And then this is the other little pod of cars that we've got tearing around, led by original leader Carl Sharkey. I say that, but look at that. That's Bram van Uytven in the 284, carrying all that extra momentum around the outside. He didn't even have to cut back down. I think that it just shows off how powerful that push is that we were talking about earlier, Jacko. That number 73 pushing that little bubble of air up onto the tail end of Bram van Uytven, which has just given him that extra boost, and he passed Carl Sharkey without even thinking about it.
Yeah, he did. He really did. He just went past, but that's time it right, and if you get the run, that is what you can really do. Remember, these cars running fixed setups, so there isn't really anything you can do to pick up any extra speed or any. There's no hacks. Literally, it's tightly regulated, and they are going to be virtually the same cars to drive in the end, even though it's a different body shell and even different engines in them. You're still this tightly squeezed 7-car pack that's battling for top positions. They're at the moment around 9 seconds ahead of this pack. So once again, for the second time in this race, we have a situation where the field is kind of split, and these drivers ought to think about not battling too much with one another and maybe just seeing if they can help one another gain back the time to the group up ahead, because in the end, top spot is what you want to have in a race like this. And no use battling for who gets 9th in the end back there. And of course, as long as they battle on up here, again, look at Gregory Vrangs now up into 2nd place, and is really bringing it to the 3 Flemish Sim Sports cars, who's done a good job of being lucky. One might say they've put themselves in the right places. That's of course a good starting point for picking up any sort of luck in any sort of racing. But the thing here is that they've also managed to put themselves in what could be the final selection. We are 84 laps or so away from the end of the race. We've been going for just about 2 hours here, and it's still very much anyone's guess just how this is going to end out. And at least I, for one, am not gonna make any assumptions. Oh, it's just as I say that they have contact yet again. They're gonna keep it running this time around. I think they actually am. That was a huge one indeed. That was de Grave, and I think it was a huge moment there. Oh my word, Sam Bentham, I think one of the drivers who made contact. I'm just gonna see if I can catch whatever happened here. So look at Hendrik de Grave on the outside. We go to the nose cam.
Well, whatever it was absolutely astonishing car control. The car ahead, that's the number 44 car of Jorn van der Akker, and it was just unbelievable car control from the Fleming SimSport driver as well. Great to see we're still racing without the caution. It's now split the pack up into 2 mini packs, the top 4 and then the next 4, and then obviously a couple of seconds down the road. And sure, we probably will get a safety car at some point to bunch everybody back up together. But by the looks of it, the Fleming SimSport guys are still controlling this race. They're no longer the front 2 on the inside and outside, but they are still in pole position, you could say, to take home some podium positions. But as you said, Hasse, they are sort of doing very well to make sure that they're in the mix towards the end of it, and they're keeping themselves out of trouble.
Yeah, indeed it is, and that's, I think, a big part of the talent that you want to have in your palette of skills, if you will, is the sixth sense of just knowing when something's gonna go wrong and whether something isn't, or just when it's gonna work out. And it seems to be a key skill for this one today, as Greg Franks now is taking the lead in front of Kim Behate, Anthony Pound, but Boland there in 4th place. Very much still a part of the action there. Sam Bentham, Jorn van der Akker, and Hendrik de Graave as well. And then in 8th place, Bram van Hoefden, and they've lost time even with that incident and how some of the drivers actually managed to pick that up. Again, these cars maybe battling a little too hard, as I mentioned before down here, because they're not really gaining.
They aren't really gaining yet, are they, Jack? And that's mainly because I think they, they're probably guaranteed that another safety car will come out. Maybe they're thinking about sort of bunching up as soon as that happens. But by the looks of it, these top 8 cars are now bunched up all together again. So it's not particularly surprising, the fact that these, backpack, we're not really too worried about them not being in the mix towards the end of the race, because they're pretty much guaranteed to be there. These Toyotas are also pretty much guaranteed to be there. The Fleming SimSport cars, Jack, they've been dominant throughout.
Yeah, they really have been. We noticed them in practice. We got a little insider view from Ian Roots as well, and we knew they were going to be competitive, but maybe not quite this competitive. And like you say, they're not massively gaining behind, and that could just be that you've got to think about a strategy. You want to obviously win the race, you want to put your car at the front, but come the final 2, maybe 3 laps, if you're at the front going into that, I can almost guarantee you won't be coming out of it, because the cars behind will be sat in the draft. They'll be waiting to strike, and as soon as that position presents itself, and they've got all of that momentum from the draft, they'll throw the car to the outside, and there you go, position loss. So at this point, personally, for me, I would still be thinking about my strategy. Like you already mentioned, there could be another safety car between now and the next, 79 laps time. And if that does happen, you've got to make sure you're in the position to take the strategy on the chin, whether it hurts your original strategy or works with you. We've also got to think about, what if there isn't one? The drivers might have practiced all of these pit entries and everything, so they will have to go into the pit lane. We might still see pit stops under green flag conditions, and I think that is something that we haven't, or we can't rule out just as yet.
Yeah, I mean, that would be amazing, considering half of these drivers have done over 5 already, like 5 pit stops already. The fact that we could have more not under safety car pretty much is pretty astonishing, really. It is worth noting as well, when this is obviously a one-off event, but normally in the Daytona 500, there's obviously crew chiefs, there's a whole team of people trying to dictate when's the best time to come into the pit, and these guys are doing it whilst driving this close to one another, isn't it? It does provoke another sort of train of thought, one that's probably pretty difficult to keep hold of when you try to race like this.
Yeah, definitely. A lot of this is pretty much mind games as well, because if you're going into this feeling really, really confident with yourself and your strategy, it could give you that extra little edge that's required to get to the front end of this order. And I think that is just sort of solidifying what the Flemish SimSport guys have done. They've put in all of this extra practice, or maybe they've just kept their nose clean, as you can see now. I think that was the number 8 of Hendrik de Graave, diving down to the inside, protecting his inside line. Still Kim Behate leading from Anton Dupin now on the inside, who dived down to the bottom, and then Gregory Franks on the outside line once again with no help, but he's still making it work behind the wheel of that number 99 Ford. Then Bod Boland back to Hendrik de Graave, riding on board with Sam Bentham now in the 24 machine. We've seen him carve his way up through the order, up 16 position from where he started, as well as Greg Franks. And then Jorn van der Akker is the next car just behind these, and that brings you to the end of the top 7 now. So I think we've lost Bram van Uytsven, and he's only dropping back now, I think, looking at the timing screen as well. So this 8-car battle for the lead now back down to 7.
It is indeed, but they're still moving around as much as they can to try and get the advantage on one another. It's nice to see we've had a sort of an elongated period without a safety car. Touch wood, you know, commentators' curse always love to come in, but one driver I'm really thrilled to have up there as I pretty much put the commentators' curse on him early doors, is Bod Boland, who obviously put it on pole earlier on in qualifying. He started in first place, and within the first 4 laps, he was the cause of the first safety car, unfortunately, after getting put out into the wall and into the inside of the track, and he was sort of battling around the 10th area for a long time. Fantastic to see him now up to where is he? In fact, he's up to 6th place now, so awesome to see Bod already up there fighting for the lead.
It really is. I think, honestly, we could just sit here and let the racing do the talking for a couple of laps, because they sound absolutely amazing as they're tearing around this 2.5-mile circuit of Daytona. And I think we could actually do that. Should we just sit back and listen to these purebred machines rattle around Daytona for a couple of laps?
I think so, though they're going 3 wide for the moment, so we'll probably put that on the back burner for half a lap just to see how this one turns out. Sam Bentham on the very much on the outside. The 99 car on the second row. All the Fleming Simsport cars are now in a line on the inside track, and they seem to have settled down. So yeah, Jack, I think that's a good idea. We'll let the cars do the talking, and we, commentary team, will be back in about, well, a couple of minutes.
Yeah, a few minutes. I'm not gonna go quickly because I'm back from a very short break indeed, as the other ones are gonna have a short one. I'm just gonna take you through what happened because it's a little too exciting not to talk you through it at the moment. We saw Sam Bentham and Anton Dupont-Airing very, very, very close to one another, almost making contact. You see there's a car coming with a huge overspeed there on the outside, but I think that is a lap machine of the 92 car. It certainly is. That's the Swede Nyström. Will be trying to unlap himself. And there's the 3 wide here. Oh, and there's 3 wide now. Second row. Greg Franks and Sam Bentham both losing out on it. And that might be all the luck needed for Flemish Simsports to put that 3-car block into existence yet again. And it created an efficient barrier for the other teams to really try to get around, but it was a long way to get around 3 cars now. Of course, a head start there for Greg Franks, who's still battling closely. He's kept his nose in front of Bentham there, and the Grave is still coming along, and they're really going for it now. The teamwork of Flemish Simsports might just be what's making it for him here today, because it's really working out. And as I say that, look at that here. Greg Franks, I think he's getting a little bit of help now from Sam Bentham on the outside. I wouldn't be surprised to see a little bit of bump drafting going on here. So on board we are with Mr. Bentham here behind the 99 car. Let's just see if he goes in to give him a little bit of a shove. He's not going to do it here through the corner. He wants to time it perfectly because he doesn't want to do it while entering the corner either way here. As you can see, he's not really touching, so I think he's going to try and see if he can wait onto the back straight, where there is plenty of opportunity to try and push Greg Franks along to see if they can just compete with the Flemish Simsport machines. And there it is.
Hey, he gets a really good run, doesn't he? And I have to say, quick apologies to the Flemish Simsport guys. I've been saying Fleming this entire time. You can tell I'm new to the SRW commentators panel. But, yeah, sorry about that. But they are doing a sterling job, and Bentham really is putting the pressure on these guys now. As we're coming up to a back marker, as they decide to nearly go 3 wide. Sam Bentham maybe looks and sees the back marker and thinks maybe this isn't the time to do that, and tucks back in before activating the slingshot after they've got this got past these guys here.
Yeah, indeed. That was a wise decision, I think. Oh, look at the 22 car getting in front of Gregory Franks, who touches the wall. And Greg Franks is going to be anything but happy with that, I'm afraid. Look at that, and I think Stuart Musselwhite has had an incident somewhere else on track. I'm gonna have another look at that. Oh, he was on the inside here, he's on the pit exit, might even be, and he just loses it all by himself. But it seems we haven't gone to any kind of caution as an effect of that, and that's gonna be poor luck for Gregory Franks, I'm afraid. That could indeed put him out of contention, especially if he's actually picked up damage in that situation. Look here, Johan van den Akker pitting in, and for the first time in a long time as well, we've had running for, well, dare I say, 20 laps or more without a caution period, which means in terms that for once the strategy is going to be a little bit different, and this time it's actually going to have time to play out. However, by the looks of it, that top 7 battle, that little incident before, has made it into a top 5 battle now. 3 of those cars being Flemish Sim Sports machines. Sorry about that, trying to suppress a little bit of a burp there. but indeed, Flemish Sim Sports now really looking like the powerhouse they are, and Greg Franks with a good toe. He might still be in it there in P6, but it sure wasn't his best of luck. There's Carl Sharkey, and they're still 10 seconds behind, so not really able to catch up, it seems. As Franks is on the outside of the 21 machine. That is in turn the car of John Tusting, sitting 9th, just about a lap back. Carl Sharkey would be, or actually I think Sharkey might be...
I think there seems to be quite a few drivers who are pitting in now. We were talking about the pitting in under the green flag conditions. There seems to be a few of them because we've got more and more now not being on the lead lap and more becoming back markers. As the Flemish SimSport guys now really do dictate the speed. 1, 2, and 3. The podium positions are all held by them at the moment, with Sam Bentham trying to put the pressure on. Obviously, we saw Gregory Vanska. He's not going to be pleased, but he probably will end up catching these guys back up. So after maybe 2 or 3 laps, Jack, we'll probably expect this to be back to a fight between the top 7, as long as the back markers can stay out of the way this time.
Yeah, I think that is something that the drivers are going to become more and more aware of the deeper we go into this race and the deeper we go into the night as well. And yeah, like we've mentioned, the strategy can play a massive part. We've already listed out pretty much everything the drivers have got to deal with, and just to throw something else in the mix, they've now got more and more back markers to deal with as well. So they've got to think about tyres, fuel, possible cautions, the drivers around them, teammates, for God's sake, with the Flemish SimSport guys. They've got 3 of them in what is now the top 5. So very busy race for all the drivers, and like you said, they will have a spot. Oh, who was that? I think that was Braxton de Grave sideways. That's de Grave hard into the wall. We saw a little bit of contact between himself and Franks, and I think Hendrik de Grave got a bit of a wiggle on, maybe a bit of help from behind, got unsettled hard into the outside wall, and then collected by, I think that was a Dynamixx car as well. We'll have to wait and see until we can see the number, unless one of you boys can figure that out before I do.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, it was an absolutely massive off. And we were saying about how the Flemish SimSport guys, they've been so good at keeping their nose clean and everything. Well, the number 8 car of Hendrik de Grave got his nose very dirty in the wall there. And he's still running, but he will probably have to take a quick repair, which these guys haven't done yet. So we are under a caution again. Quite a few drivers pitted under green flag. They'll be cursing that now because they could just eke it out a couple of laps longer. They could have pitted under a caution period. And I'm sure we'll see a few of these drivers now pitting in as soon as they can.
Yeah, indeed. I think for many of these drivers, this caution period couldn't have come at a better time, given that a couple of the drivers who were running high up the order actually fell down the order because they had to make a pit stop under green flag conditions. So there you see the strategy beginning to play out at least. But such an event of poor luck, and for the first time, Flemish SimSports being caught out by it there, and can help to feel a little bad for Hendrik de Grave, who didn't really have a lot to do in the end there. Looks like he's lost the entire rear end of the car, from what I can see there, Jack.
Yeah, it was a very, very big hit into the wall, and although on first glance it looks like that would make very little difference to the aerodynamics of the car with it being on the rear, it could massively affect himself and the cars behind as well, because obviously it will affect the car or on how the air flows over his car, and also therefore how it will affect the cars behind. You can see them peeling off to the left hand side of the road to go into the pit lane. We haven't seen any pit lane fakes today. We know some people dive off to the left hand side, making people think they're going to go into the pit lane, but then cutting across at the last minute. Haven't seen any of that. You can see the top 8 in the pit lane. John Tusting and Luca Becker remaining out on circuit, as well as Bram van Uitven. And I think Sven Kalber is remaining out on circuit as well, following this safety truck around. Once again, a very, very busy pit lane. Keep an eye out, see if anybody gets jumped in the pit lane. Bod Boland is still sat there. I think he's got the first pit box in that number 12 machine. And now you can see everybody leaving the pit lane. That's Anton Dupin now in the lead. Bod Boland there in second. Kimber Haight in third. Gregory Franks manages to get out in fourth. Sam Bentham in fifth. Hendrik de Grave gets back out in sixth. So after that massive incident, he's got back out on the road with a fresh piece of kit as well. So a good pit stop from Hendrik, putting him right back in the mix again.
That's a perfect example of how the fast repair can really save your race in conjunction with a caution period like this, because he looked to be absolutely out of it, but he isn't. And Toyota lives to fight another minute here at Daytona. We're at lap 136 out of a 200 that we have to do, so we're nearing that 3/4 of the way through, and you just have to wonder if they can keep it a little bit cleaner this time around here. John Tusting is into the pits now, and that's sooner rather than later, I believe.
Yeah, I think they're all getting used to the oval racing sort of format. They're all sort of getting used to racing with each other as well. I mean, we've seen a couple of drivers as well having little incidents, but then keeping hold of the car as well. So with any luck, apart from the fact that if safety cars breed safety cars, if we can get over the next 5 laps, 10 laps without one, we should be relatively in for hopefully, touch wood, a clean home stretch. But obviously, commentators' curse seems to follow me everywhere, so hopefully I haven't just jinxed us, lads.
Well, one who knows his commentator's curse is certainly Jack, who is a pure blood commentator. Jack Werrell, who is the son of a commentator as well. So obviously, it's the case that Jack's curse runs powerfully within his blood, and I've said it on many occasions, but I fear Jack's curse. Especially as you grow older, Jack, it's going to become more and more powerful. Lord knows what it's going to be doing to racers in the end. Good.
Yeah, let's hope it doesn't.
When you get my age, I was about to say.
Let's hope it doesn't continue to accelerate. But yeah, like you mentioned, I am the son of Mark Werrell, the commentator, and I think that is what affects it. It just accelerates as the further along we go down the family tree. But imagine getting to the lofty age of Hasse. He's almost in his 60s now. I think this is going to be the last lap. The lights are now extinguished on the safety truck, and we are about to go back racing here at the Dynamixx Daytona 500.
So just waiting to see the safety truck, the pace truck, as it is officially called, peel into the pit lane. Here we go. And it's Anton Dupin yet again. We've seen the Flemish Sim Sports cars with early starts, and on the team radio, he's got Kim Bahade on him. Bod Boland with a terrible start, and Greg Franks immediately on the inside there. Look out for Bod. No, look out for Sam Bentham as well in the 24 machine. There on the outside is Hendrik de Grave as well, and I believe it's not been a good start for Boland, who's falling down the order. And look who's there as well, Carl Sharkey, although he is actually, you know what? It's now an 8-car battle. Carl Sharkey's gotten onto the lead lap, and he's right on the tail of this.
Yeah, we know Carl Sharkey does have that ability to lead the race. We saw him leading very early on. We'll obviously be able to see, I think, after the race session is closed out, how many laps he actually did lead at the front. But like you say, now back to an 8-car battle for the lead. At the moment, led by Gregory Franks with Anton Dupin there in second. position. Sam Bentham in third, Kimber Haight in fourth, Bod Boland fifth, Hendrik de Graeve now up into sixth position. Carl Sharkey's dropping down the order. He's now back down into ninth. I think Bram van Uitven overtook him just as we were going on to lap 139, but I still can't believe Hendrik de Graeve, after that massive hit into the wall, minimised the damage to himself and other cars, and still out on the lead lap, and then still battling for the lead. So that number 8 machine doing a brilliant job.
Yeah, they seem to be superhuman in their sort of immuneness to actually getting into trouble or falling down the order, these Flemish SimSport guys, but they're certainly doing a good job here. Fransk as well, he was involved in a big hit earlier on as well, and he dropped down the order. He's now leading the race. Sam Bentham has been up and down. Anton Tupan's pretty much always been within the top 5, and obviously Bob Boland, he started on pole, went all the way down to about 20th position. He's now up to 4th, so it does really show you guys that anything can happen in this overall race. And I think I speak for all 3 of the commentators to say we're sort of very pleasantly surprised, and we're hoping to see more of this on the SRW page.
Yeah, definitely. I do hope that we can carry this momentum into future oval racing events. I think Hasse's reaction outlines what I was feeling perfectly. Bod Boland, millimetre perfect, cutting across the front of Sam Bentham. And Hasse, got anything to say about that?
That made my heart jump all the way up my throat, because there was a huge moment in the end. As he just cut across, he had a sixth sense of just knowing that he was actually clear, or an absolute trust in his sputter that you need to have anyways, maybe, but that was millimeter precision indeed there. German or Japanese, you would have expected by the level of precision in there. Look at that, Sam Bentham on the outside is trying to make it 3 wide, and I think they are indeed 3 wide out there. And let's see if anyone has anything to say at that. He gets closed off as they come into the corner as well. The corner, the left-hander. We're going to be seeing quite a number of those tonight. And Bod Boland is trying to get in the mix as well. They're all looking a little bit squirrely, and the pack has actually grown in size. Look at this, Sven Kalbert. He's trying to get onto the rear end of it as he is on the lead lap, but he's 12 seconds down. John Tusting, however, he's into 9th place. He hasn't really been anywhere for a long time. All of a sudden, he finds himself a quantum racing there in with a shot in the 21 machine, and it's all kicking off up ahead. Look at that now. Dupin, de Graeve, Boland, Sam Bentham, yet again, they're all going for it here as they're seeing and sensing that the last 50 laps of racing are just about to be upon us. If we keep it green all the way, that's going to be just around half an hour's worth of racing to remain. Well, let's see about that in the end. Because it could
Yeah, it's a big if we keep it green for the rest of this race, but whatever happens, I think it's going to be just as close at the end as it is in the beginning, as it is right now, as it has been pretty much throughout. It's going to be certainly thrilling. If we don't do photo finishes, I'll be very surprised. But one thing's pretty much for sure, there's going to be about 4 or 5 people trying to vie for the race lead on the final couple of laps. And Jack, it's certainly going to be really sort of exciting to see how it boils down to it. Are you going to be brave enough to say who might be in that fight?
No, because I know exactly. I know as soon as I say it, they'll end up firing it off, or something will happen. God forbid. So I'm gonna keep my trap shut. I'm not gonna put my money on anybody, because the last time I did that, Ryan Walker, he ended up leaving the session. He was on for a great result, but sadly not to be. But look at this now, getting a great view from the back of Gregory Branks. You can just see from this camera angle how much the cars do actually move, although it's a couple of feet either way. As you're doing 300 kilometers an hour, a couple of feet must feel like a couple of miles at that point. And look at that. Thanks, Hasse, bringing it up on the bottom right hand of your screen. 310 kilometers an hour through a corner, now going into the 315 kilometers an hour, still getting quicker, almost 320. I saw it pop up there, now almost into the midway point of 325 kilometers an hour. Miles an hour would be fairly quick, but 313 kilometers an hour through a corner, bear in mind, with cars only feet away from you. It shows more or less the bravery of these drivers, doesn't it?
Yeah, it really does. It's big cojones, as they say in Mexico. It's really necessary here, and you really need to be willing and able to take a risk once in a while, because you can play it safe for so long. But the thing is that trying to play it safe in a race like this often is going to expose you to more risk. You want to be at the head of the pack. Again, this is a place where this sort of racing has its similarities to cycling. You want to be at the head of the pack, where you want to stay clear of the crashes. that can in turn happen in front of you, because those often play out to be the most devastating ones indeed. Still double file all the way through here. The 17 car of Paul Gosling is fighting it out with John Tusting for 9th and 10th place there. And I think the 73 machine of Sven Kalbert is... Oh, I was actually a little too early on there because I thought that was the 13 car that we're seeing. That's Austin Gutierrez, and he is indeed a lapped car. So a little bit a little too early on my excitement there to see. I'm hoping to see Sven Kalbert in there as well. But he's lapping quickly on the 45 zeros. He's got some cars to help him along. So 12 seconds down, he still could very well come in to the very thick of it here. Franks, Boland, and Dupin is now leading. And that's Dupin leading Franks, and then Boland on the outside with Carl Sharkey on his tail. And Sharkey's probably just going to give him a push. And you can see immediately the overspeed that it gives to the car of Bud Boland as he gets that little bit of a nudge from Carl Sharkey in behind. These cars are made to be able to last the distance, even though they bump draft one another from start to finish. Of course, that's given that the speed differential isn't too big. That's a Dynamixx car who's trying to get on the outside there. Oh, got out of the way. Greg Franks, huge moment indeed as he came past there. It almost ended in big old tears indeed. But they just about managed to keep it alive, keep it well, keep it going in the end.
It's amazing, really.
Sorry. Go on, Jacko.
I was just about to say, it's amazing, really, the difference if you watch like these couple of laps and the first couple of laps, the difference between sort of the precision that the drivers are able to drive at in terms of how close they get to side-by-side action. In the first couple of laps, we saw, although I said that, the 16 car goes out and gives a bit of a show to Carl Sharkey and says, you know what, we're still here, get out to the outside, please. Bob Boland has... Well, he's inside the car of Anton Dubin, and there is a big off in the background there. I think, Hasse, you saw it there first?
Yeah, I'm afraid that happened to... There was Hendrik de Graeve, there was Sam Bentham as well involved. And let's see if we can get a better look at what exactly happened here. Because this seems to be a... I'm just going to have a look here, it might be, yeah. Oh, so a bit of contact between Hendrik de Graeve and Sam Bentham. You can see those flaps going off to help the car not flipping over. Bit of damage to the rear end of Sam Bentham's car. That leads me to believe he'd had a touch from de Graeve as well. Second time in not too long that the number 8 car's been involved in something. And we'll have to wonder, did that bring out a yellow flag? And I don't think it has. I actually, honestly, don't believe it's brought out the yellow flag. Because both drivers, both cars has kept on running. They haven't really made contact with anything but the other cars. They kept it out the walls. And that in the end is going to be, I think, might be even worse for Sam Bentham and for Hendrik de Graeve as well. Because they're not going to be able to catch up to the rear end of this pack. Still rolling along at a mighty speed indeed. We saw 319, 320 kilometers an hour. And that might even be through the corners as well when you're in the draft. So huge speed. And of course it's going to be costly if you get dislodged from the rear end of the draft here. So Boland leading Dupin, Behait, Franks, Sharkey, Van Uitven, and Paul Gosling up there in 7th place, then John Tusting. And that's the end of this lead pack at the moment.
I've got to agree with you though, Hasse. You did say that Sam Bentham and Hendrik de Graeve will have been hoping for a caution there, although it be to everybody's demise. It will be to their gain because it means their loss will be minimised, and the fact that everybody will be diving into the pit lane, they can gain all those positions back, and in theory they do get a free pit stop out of that as well. But now, like you say, they have dropped way back off this lead pack, so everybody's still working together. Although they seem like they're battling, they are in theory working together, sat there pushing or pulling each other along, whichever position you're in. And Carl Sharkey, for me, standout driver at the moment. He's gone from the lead right the way back down to the middle of the pack, and he's played his strategy card perfectly, and he's now back up there fighting in what is now, what will that be? That is the top 8, because we've still got 8 cars for the lead, led by Bob Boland, then Anton Dupin, Kim Behait, while Anton Dupin and Kim Behait still swapping positions, both teammates there for Flemish Sports, then Greg Franks, Carl Sharkey, Paul Gosling, Grant Van Uitven and John Tusting are your top 8, so the pack we're looking at the moment. But just to see all these cars once again battling nose to tail, and to still working together. They're battling, but helping each other along at the same time. It's quite an odd little dynamic to get your head around, isn't it, Jacko?
It certainly is, yeah, they're fighting all the time, and I have to say, I'm looking at the positions gained, the positions lost, and apart from Bod Boland, we know his journey hasn't been smooth to the point where he is at the moment. You can qualify pretty much anywhere and guarantee that you'll end up changing positions rather drastically. I think a lot of these top sort of 8 drivers, they've gained double figures, so they qualified way down in the 20th area, and a lot of drivers who qualified in around the top 10, they've fallen down to maybe DNFing even. So apart from Bod Boland, who's now obviously going side by side with Anton Japan, you know, it's likely to see big changes. So qualifying is not the be all and end all here at Daytona.
Oh, I was, if anywhere, this isn't really the place where you'd expect qualifying results to matter all that much. Of course, you could be in a better position, but we've seen plenty of cars come
Bod Boland's gone off!
Boland! And this time it's going to be a huge incident to call out the yellow flag. Let's just see if we can get it. Oh, and it's Boland, and it's one of the Flemish Sim Sports cars as well. It's Anton Dupin indeed. And they're going to be collecting the 17 car as well, and the 13 car as well. So that's, I think that's Paul Gosling there on the outside as well. Let's see, does the 21 car make it through? That's John Tusting. He's heavy on the brakes, make no mistake here. But is he going to make it through? That's the question. We don't have to watch it all the way through in slow-mo here. John Tusting, a big cut off the grass indeed, but he manages without any big jumps or bumps, and that's certainly going to help keep the engine alive. But what a piece of bad luck here. And what is that, 5th, 6th caution period of this race here at 154 laps into it. And now they're running to catch the pace truck.
I think for this one, Hasse, we're going to have to blame Jacko, because he was just saying that that Bod Boland hadn't lost any positions. And
I knew that was coming.
And what happens? He loses all those positions. So this one, Jacko, I'm afraid this one's on you.
That's the second time I've happened to Bod as well. So I do formally apologise for Bod Boland. That's I will take the stick for that one, unfortunately.
But Boland's so unlucky. Let's see here, go on board with him and see if we can catch a glimpse of what exactly happened at the yellow flag. So that's when the yellow flag came out. But so that's how he got collected. You can actually see just about nothing of it. And a pure passenger in that situation. It's a little hard to see if he was actually coming across in any way, but I don't necessarily think so. But Bod Boland, very, very unlucky indeed. Here, let's go back to live pictures. I'm afraid Bod Boland has we're for some reason unable to go back to live pictures.
Well, while you try and figure that one out, Hasse, I'm just having a look at the comments on YouTube, and Ryan Walker, obviously a driver that Jack, you put the commentator's curse on, so I'm just trying to get you back for this one, really. He apparently went for the middle line between 2 cars, and he just got turned around. He had an engine blow, and he had 30 minutes worth of repairs. So, yeah, that's not ideal. That's what happened to Ryan Walker, obviously a front runner earlier on in the race, and he's dropped out of the session now. I
think what we will be able to do is the boss. He's sat in the interview waiting room. We've got to bring him in, surely, just to get his take on what Daytona is like. So he's going to do the honours, because I can imagine, while he's best pleased with getting the result out, or getting this event sort of organised, do you think it's worth bringing him in if he's grumpy?
Bring him in, Jack, and you take the honours.
Okay, I'll do it. He's got himself muted at the moment. When we drag him in, I'm hoping that he'll unmute himself and undeafen himself, because at this point he still won't be able to hear us. So there we go. We do have him with us now. So, Ian, welcome to the commentary box. That didn't really go to plan, did it?
It didn't, no. And I hope my microphone's all right, because it seems to be picking up some it seems to be picking up some interference from somewhere. It didn't quite go to plan, but as you saw in the early stages, I do have the pace to run at the front. I've done a few of these, and I really, really enjoy it. But with the added new, the addition of the new side draft that they've added, they've increased the effect of side draft. It's catching a few people out, I think. But it's been fantastic. It's been quite a spectacle and great to be part of. Sadly, I'd used my fast repairs early on, and as the race went on, my engine just got slower and slower. And I don't want to get in the way of the front guys. But I decided to pull out and watch it from YouTube perspective. And yeah, it's a first for us, and it's been fantastic.
It really has. I wish we can, or we get more of these planned for the future. And like you mentioned, the side draft, there's lots of different dynamics that the drivers have got to deal with, whether it's just the main draft or the side draft, like you mentioned, and then the strategy as well. Is it busy when you start behind the wheel?
In actual fact, people think, oh, I'm just turning left. It's that easy. It's not easy. It is two hands on the wheel at all times, and you are concentrating as harder than you would concentrate more in a NASCAR race than you do when you are racing on circuits, on road circuits. You're thinking about side draft, you're thinking about front and rear, you're thinking about not being too close to the guy in front. 'Cause if you are physically bump drafting, engine temperature goes up and the engine will blow. So you can't be too close to the guy ahead. You cannot afford to lose the draft, because if you lose the draft, then you're just literally losing anything up to 4 seconds a lap to the pack. So there's a lot to think about, and yeah, in VR, it's intense.
I can imagine it's quite toasty underneath your VR as well. But before we let you go, as we go back to green, is there anybody you'd like to thank or shout out while we've got you in the box?
Yeah, the main man's obviously Jochen. Jochen was the one that decided he wanted to be on board with the sponsorship for this event, so it could be a nice cheap event for the drivers to be taking. So yeah, thanks to Jochen and all the drivers. There's been plenty of events, and this is I'm hoping is going to gather pace. If it gathers pace after today, we'll get some feedback from everybody. There's a lot to learn. We're all rookies, and yeah, let's bring it on for a series in the winter.
Brilliant stuff. Well, we'll look forward to hearing more about that, and thank you for joining us in the commentary box.
Thanks, guys.
So Jack Werrell there with a word from our boss, the boss indeed, Ian Roots, who's putting all this on SimracersWorld TV for all of you to enjoy. We're back to green flag racing here on lap 157, and Kim Behage's just taking the lead. Carl Sharkey with a very, very good start indeed. And look at that, Brand van Eycken, who's up there in third place in that 284 car. Has come from pretty much out of nowhere. Then Anthony Cannon, Greg Frank, Sam Bentham, and Sven Kalbert, who used the caution period to good effect, up into 7th place, and once again in touch with the leaders, Hendrik de Graaf, John Tusting, and Paul Gosling. Same for them, and I actually think Johan van den Akker and even Bart Boland is there at the back of this train. And Bart Boland, who does look to have had a final fast repair, if I'm very much not mistaken, although that rear end could actually have taken a bit of damage. I'm not quite sure. You can't really hang me up on that one. He seems to be a little off pace. Bad luck. If it's the case for Boland, we'll have to see as the race goes on here, as we're back to front line action yet again.
Yeah, I think Bob Boland, he got away with the one there, I think, because obviously it was a big off that he endured. Sam Bentham hasn't learned his lesson. He's still on the very outside line, trying to make it 3 wide as best he can on board with Kim Behate. But Bob Boland, unlike the rest of these drivers, he won't have to lift necessarily very often. He can just go flat out. He'll be on the back of this pack, hopefully sooner rather than later. Speaking of this pack, Carl Sharkey has actually got his nose ahead of Kim. Well, they're sort of going nose to tail, you should say, really. But the Belgians really dominating now. Apart from Carl Sharkey, they're doing extremely well. And I never thought I'd see a Daytona race that's contested and dominated by Belgians and Brits. To be honest, it's an interesting one to see, but it's great to have on board. Big off in the background.
There was a bit of a touch there for Sam Bentham before, and he then made contact with another car. I think that's the car of Stuart Musselwhite. As you saw it, he's moving slowly. Is that a netcode? I can't really see. I'll have to have another look at the incident. See if we can capture it there. No, that is certainly not a netcode between the 94 machine and Sam Bentham. And there isn't really anywhere to go for Bentham and the 94 machine. Well, they're both paying the price dearly here. As well, of course, John Tusting, not the car involved. It's just the car that happened to be in focus here. And yet again, back to caution.
Yeah, back to caution, and with 40 laps to go exactly as well. So I'm hoping that it's always the safety car beats safety car. I said it a couple of times this round, but yeah, it's just hopefully we'll get back into a bit of a flow of things. But just having a little think about what Ian Roots was saying, I would love to see a series of the NASCAR events going on, whether or not we do the full length NASCAR series, or whether we sort of break it down to sort of smaller races, but maybe more on an evening. It'd be interesting to see how these guys would adapt, whether these guys obviously involved today would be up for a series in itself. Because I mean, Hasse, you said that they're in a lot of different series with SRW already.
Yeah, indeed. I think the most of these drivers are in some way committed to some kind of series here on SRW already. So it's of course not always easy to find that time to go out, practice, and get everything ready for another running series. But then again, no one says that it has to be running weekly or even fortnightly, so it could even be a monthly series, something like that. I think that would work out as well if that's what the people want. But I think personally for me, I want to see more of this oval racing. I want to get excited about more oval racing as well, because it's really damn exciting to watch.
It is very exciting to watch, and it's just constantly ever changing as well. All of a sudden we see drivers who we thought were completely out of the race making it back through the order. We saw drivers who seem to be there all the time in the top 5. They end up with a small little incident, maybe getting the back end loose. We see quite a lot of drivers, nearly everybody in fact, diving into the pits. Only a few drivers staying out. Let's have a look. Gregory Vransk is one of them. Hendrik de Grave, again, one of those drivers we saw hit in the wall pretty heavily. He's now back up to second, just thanks to sort of tactics, everybody pitting in when the safety car comes out. So there is never any sort of, I wouldn't say consistency, but there's never any sort of predictability, shall we say. In motorsport, we love unpredictability. That's why we come to watch it. That's why we come to race it, and that's why we, as commentators, come to shout at our monitors about it.
Very, very much so. I'm sure Hasse wants to shout at me at the moment after calling him almost 60, but we'll bear that in mind for the closing stages of the stream. But like you say, yeah, unpredictability. I think that is the word that perfectly describes this entire race. So many different little bits that have been thrown into the mix that nobody could have really planned for or started to mold their strategy around. It's that is literally the perfect word to do it. It's all been unpredictable today because you can't really plan a caution or a yellow flag or anything like that, because it just happens sometimes through no fault of your own. Sometimes you might have had a part to play in it, and you don't obviously plan it around a caution. And I think that could be a major turning point for a lot of the drivers, because you might work your strategy out. You might just sit there in testing, run your tank till dry, and then just keep on doing that. But then if you do that, you don't get any sort of idea on how to approach your strategy then as soon as you get the safety truck out. So lots of different bits to work on, and lots of different bits that the drivers have got to deal with once again. And like Ian said, it's very, very busy. You think, like you said, Jack, it's just turning left. But when you're sat there, you've got to make sure you're zoned in. You probably forget to blink for a good few minutes, or a good few laps even, around here, just because you're sat there so focused and so in the moment. And this bit of downtime, it could be quite dangerous for the drivers, because they've got themselves into a rhythm, and then this is the point where the mistakes will start to come, because they've just lifted their foot off the gas for a little bit, they've calmed down, but it's also maybe taken their eye off the ball as well.
Yeah, indeed.
It certainly is. Oh, sorry, go on, Hasse.
Well, no worries. I was just gonna have a look at, we're coming in from chat, and Ian telling us the base plan is already down on paper, so we could be looking at an oval league happening here on SRW TV sometime in the relatively near future, which would be great indeed. But I think it's fair to say that it's been a learning experience for I think many of us here, drivers, commentators alike, and of course all feedback is to be taken in, and we will be taking it in. I can tell you that much. That's for sure. And so it is in quotation marks just a fun event, just a gathering. Just a gathering.
Especially distance gathering.
60-year-old me. By the way, Jack, by the logic, if I'm turning 60, you'll be 9. And I guess that's okay. So I can be 60 if you want. Although I don't sound like that by the time I age and turn 60 anyways. Let's see how life unfolds. Philosophical questions and mass. And we're about to go back to green here from the Dynamixx Daytona 500 as Gregory Franks leads him back to green flag racing. And look at that. I'm having a little bit of a hard time believing this, lads, but Flemish Sim Sports is back 2nd, 3rd, and 4th again.
Well, I said it before, unpredictability is key. Consistency isn't the word, or inconsistency, sorry, isn't the word, because these guys have been consistently at the front of the field, and they're back at it again. Frank's got a good run. I tell you what, I think that's on the outside as Carl Sharkey going for the race lead as well. They're going 3 wide. They are indeed, as Gregory Franks is on the inside. Sandwiched between them is Anton Tupan. Carl Sharkey has lost out in a big way. He's now down to 5th position, but that's why you can't take the sort of almost 3rd row on the outside by the Flemish Sim Sport guys. And I think that is, which one is that? That's Hendrik de Grave off yet again. So all of a sudden, it's now down to the 2 Flemish Sim Sport guys to try and take this race lead away from France.
Yeah, have a look at this. Hendrik de Grave with the pit entrance of a lifetime. I think it's here, perhaps. Yeah, there it is. Oh. If ever someone was going to pick up a penalty for speeding in the pit lane, I'm afraid could very well be Hendrik de Grave here. But of course, race control might have the opportunity to actually remove that penalty from Hendrik here. But it's going to put him out of contention if we stay green all the way to the line. It was a huge moment. And 3 is now down to 2. For Flemish Sim Sports, as Gregory Franks still leads him, and he's shown to be a real contender in the 99 machine for the SimracersWorld esports. Oh, and they've had it again, and they've wrecked and they've crashed, and it's another one of the Flemish Sim Sports teams, and it has to be another yellow flag, and it is indeed another caution. And what is happening here, Jack? Tell us a little bit more.
So let's see, look at this. I think that's the number 4 getting fired up into the outside wall. That was the number 73 collecting him as well, so major contact. And then the number 17 Quantum Machine comes in as well. That's Paul Gosling left with nowhere to go, and that is just one of the things you've got to cope with in oval racing. If there is an incident in front of you, you are left with little to no room and little to no time to decide on which way you're going to send your car. You always want to aim for the car. That tends to be a general rule of thumb. If there's an incident in front of you, aim for the car, because by the time you get there, the car won't be. So I think at this point in the race, you almost put it onto autopilot. And I'm sorry, Jacko, but I'm going to have to blame this one on you again. It's got to be commentator's curse. He said somehow the Flemish Sim Sport cars are 1, 2, 3, and look what happens.
I think I'll just leave, Ian. I'll hand him a resignation now. I do want to show off, before I do end up resigning, I do want to show off my little bit of lingo that I learned here for the oval, though. It does look like Kimber had just sort of like almost got a little bit a bit tight. He went a little bit understeery, I think, towards the back, sort of towards the outside of the circuit. I don't think there was a massive from that onboard. It didn't look like it, to be honest. But from the cameras on the outside, it certainly looked like there was a potential where he just slightly understeered into the car that was obviously trying to take the outer line. But when you're driving about half a foot apart from each other, any kind of even just hitting a stone and moving your car a couple of inches out to the right won't happen so much on iRacing, but that would be catastrophic. And unfortunately, yeah, the Flemish SimSport guys have been struck by the Jacko curse.
Yeah, indeed, it's another strike of the Jacko curse. It's been a cursed race for a lot of these drivers, to be honest. We've had a lot of incidents that's been just kind of the slightest of touches and the car getting turned into the barrier and then picking up 4, 5, 6 more cars on his way to a stop at the side of the track. And it just also shows that, you know, of course it's the same with road racing, but it's only the same on lap 1, sometimes on the first few couple of laps or so. It's rarely the case that we see these kind of conditions go on and on and on and on. For lap after lap after lap again. So really interesting stuff, and just how they're gonna be dealing with it. We see a number of drivers coming in here and a couple of drivers staying out as well. Greg Franks, Dupin, and Sam Bentham, Oliphant and Hasse Rømer, and Carl Sharkey all staying out, and I think that's Kim Behaid also staying out as well. But Bram Vermeiden, John Tusting, Lee Becker, Luca Becker, and Sven Kalbert as well, exiting the pits right around now. They're going to be well on the lead lap. They're going to be able to catch back up to the pack there at the front, and they're going to be fueled to run. Well, that's actually a good old question, but are these cars going to be able to run 32 laps on a tank full?
To be honest, I don't think none of the three of us know the answer to that one, because we haven't been able to see a legitimate pit stop to pit stop because we've had so many cautions. So, Jack, unless you can shine some light, I'm a bit stumped. I would think they could, because we saw about 30 laps before, but I could be wrong.
I mean, I'm not 100% sure. They must do a good 1 mile per gallon in these absolute V8 beasts. If we end up getting Ian Roots back in, we might end up being able to speak to him, get a bit of an insider view to the fuel usage and the tyre usage even on these NASCARs. I think we may end up only having 1 lap left of yellow flag running.
But he's there in chat though, Jack. He tells us now it gets interesting, and he says 32 on a tank is possible.
Oh, okay. So we've got we do have a possibility that the drivers will be able to go to the end if there are no more yellow flags. There you go. So the lights on the top and lights of the page truck have been extinguished. Sorry about that. But yes, so not many laps left to go. And like you said, Jacko, if they can get to the end, it could be just a straight run for Gregory Franks. But Flemish Simsport guys are still there or thereabouts. I say Flemish Simsport guys. Flemish Simsport guy. It's Anton Dupin is the only one still in the top 5 by the looks of it.
He's the only one on the lead lap as well by the looks of it. So we're talking about the importance of being on the lead lap. There are a total of 10 drivers out of the 25. Obviously, we've had some disconnections, DNFers and the likes, but we have 10 drivers all on the lead lap. 10 drivers who are probably thinking at the state of this race, we probably have a shot at getting the race victory here. But Gregory Vance is in the driving position, shall we say. Anton Dupin will be hoping to spoil the race, and there'll be some slingshotting for sure over the last 5 laps or so. I can't wait to see how this one actually pans out as we're going towards a green flag if the lights are off on the safety truck.
Indeed it is. It's going to peel off yet again, and we're going to go green yet again at the end of this lap to get what will hopefully be the final run of this Dynamixx Daytona 500 underway. And of course, do yourself a favor and go check out the Dynamixx webpage for a clear and comprehensive image of the wide array of services provided in the world of having fun. Anyways, what you're going to see now is the pace truck peel off into the pit lane, and then it's going to be Gregory Franks with the control yet again. And we've seen him go very, very early at times before he tries to go this again. But I think Anton Dupin, he very much, look at this, he was completely awake to it. He went as early. Nobody gets a real jump this time. Still 2 file all the way around, maybe 3 wide into the middle of the corner. There's Van Aerten on the outside there, P5 in the number 284 car, who's been so far behind for so long. He's managing to come up on the lead lap with the caution periods, and now in with a real shout, and they have to be careful of those nudgy movements there from side to side across the track, because so many times we've seen cars being picked off in just one of those maneuvers. But Boland in chat as well, so sorry to see the incident there. It was a really good run, and it was a really good time even to put it on pole position. And Jack, I'm pretty amazed to see Sam Bentham, even with the number of incidents he's been involved in as well, and not too long ago sitting 3rd at the moment.
Yeah, Sam is doing a brilliant job. Also another resident racer here on SimracersWorld TV in the GT series. So Sam Bentham showing his capability in one of these NASCARs, as well as Anton Dupin and of course Gregory Franks as well. Luca Becker riding on board now, the number 25 machine, lifting off slightly, not wanting to get too close, like what Mr. Ian Roots said. If you get too close, you can overheat your car very easily. He's got the draft of, 4 or 5 cars in front available to him, so if he does want to gain, he just puts his foot to the floor once again, and in no time at all, he will be there or thereabouts. There are the track conditions on the right-hand side of your screen, just on past 10 past 8 in sim time. And you can see very conservative driving from Luca Becker, lifting off here and there, not wanting to get too close to the tail end of Carl Sharkey. He doesn't want to slow down too much though, because John Tusting is just behind as well. And now Kimber Haight up into the top 6. He left the yellow flag period in 10th position. He's now up into P5, pardon me, because Bram van Uytven has taken the lead. Anton Dupin there in 2nd, Sven Calvert in 3rd, Gregory Franks now down in 4th, and there is Kimber Haight. So the top 5 all from Belgium.
Yeah, indeed, and there was a lot of talk about the Belgians. There was quite a number of them, and they might be fast, and they've certainly shown just that. Oh, that's Sven Calvert from 4th place, just thinking about going 3 wide there. But they're practically touching one another right now through the first front rows here, and Carl is very much a part of it there. Carl Sharkey in P8. Would normally find driving for Strasse Porsche Sport. And by the way, welcome to Porsche Sport as well. Welcome to all of you who've been watching along. Early days, midway through the race here at the later parts, or all the way through if that's been the case. We've been able to stand the company of me and 2 times Jack here for the best part of 3 hours. It's actually been a bit more because we did a bit of practice, but a bit of qualifying as well. So, yeah.
I mean, I think it's been 3 hours pleasantly well spent watching some exciting racing, Hasse. I'm just saying, you know, I've enjoyed myself on my first time at SRW. And hopefully it'll be sealed off really rather well sooner rather than later as well, with 25 laps, or 26 laps to go.
See how they got close to one another. Look at that. The 4 car is squeezing Sam Bentham out of it. And that's the car of Kimber Haight, who's running up the order there. And Sven Calvert up into 2nd place as well. So it's Van Aert, Calvert, Behait, Dupin, then Sam Bentham, Greg Franks, Carl Sharkey, Jorn van den Akker, and Luca Becker, with John Tusting rounding off the front runners here at the moment. Luca Becker here in the 25 machine from Luxembourg, having flown pretty much underneath the radar for a little way here in this race, but also with a good shout and actually doing something at the end of the race.
I have to say, Sam Bentham did extraordinarily well not to end up coming off the wall and into any of the other cars. He was within a hair's breadth of making contact, so although he's fallen down the order because he was on the wrong part of the circuit, he was very, very close to ending not only his race, but anybody else's chances as well. Good driving by Sam, and I'm sure we'll see him being slingshotted towards the top 5 sooner rather than later, although that may well be the commentator's goes again, so I'm just going to shut up quickly.
325 kilometers as he makes his way across the line. Sam Bentham, we're into the final 25 laps of racing here, and that's not going to take much more than 20 minutes if they keep on at it. And I'm not going to say anymore either, and just in pure fear of what I might bestow upon the drivers here. But anyway, it has been absolute manic racing for so long, and it keeps on being. Oh, there's a little bit of a lift. Just know that those situations might turn out to be dangerous. And behind here, 2 Flemish sim sports cars up here has found one another yet again, with Anton Dupin ahead of Kimber Haight in the number 4 machine, just trying to push his teammate along. But they know they have the company of some capable gentlemen in here, with Bram van Uytven there on the inside, but Sven Calvert also very much a part of this. Greg Franks now down in 5th place. Got Sam Bentham, Carl Sharkey, Jorn van den Akker has come up from out of nowhere as well in the 44 machine. Does he have any tricks up his sleeve here for the final bit of the race? Pretty interesting to see. Oh, and just as I say that, I think we've had a problem here for someone. That was the 23 car, I'm afraid. Or was it Sven Calvert? Sven Calvert, let's have a look here. Oh, that's a big old notch there, and the fact that it's actually Calvert going across the track and the grass, and not one of the other cars who actually made contact in ahead there, and the fact that he also keeps it relatively clean. He doesn't crash the car, which is going to be nice and good news for him. He can still catch up if someone else crashes, but I don't expect really anyone to have many fast repairs left for a late race caution here. So that's a driver out the pack here, and out the back as well, if you will. Now it's Carl Sharkey and Luca Becker, last man in the line here. 8 cars still in with a shout.
I think what happened with that incident, Hasse, was when Kim Verheyt made that door-to-door contact with Bram van Uitven, Sven Kalber almost predicted the incident, threw the car down way lower. So let's have a look at the incident again. Look at the number 4 Flemish Sim Sports car on the right-hand side of your screen now, coming down onto the 284 machine. You see the 284 get very sideways. Sven Kalber at this point probably think, oh, he actually gets a nudge. He gets a hit from behind. I thought he was preempting the incident, but no, he got a hit from behind.
And that was a big old hit indeed. That was actually very well kept by Sven Kalber to minimize the impact of whatever contact there was, that by far enough to send the car sliding onto the grass. And these cars are not easy to control. And still on they go, lap 180 now. So just about 20 laps to go. And Gregory Franks has gone from 5th to fighting for the lead now yet again, and they're all switching positions. So take it with a grain of salt as to who's leading, because it might change time and time again. And Jacko, if you were to pick any one of these drivers over the rest of you, the pack here, they're all in with a shout for a win, but is there any one of these drivers you think has shown and proven themselves to be a little above the rest?
You're gonna honestly ask me to shout out who I think might end up winning the race, because you know they'll end up spinning out, Hasse. That's not fair. I'd say Anton Tapan has been one of the stars of the show. He's consistently there. I'm touching wood whilst all the time doing this, by the way. Franz has certainly shown in the second half of the race that he's certainly quick and got a good racecraft to be up there. Van Uitven is one that I wasn't expecting to be up there come the end of the race, but Kim Verheyt as well. He's back up to the Flemish spot, another Flemish sport car up the top end. Sam Bentham's been a bit too inconsistent for me. I'd go for Tapan or Varansk to probably take home the victory for now. I think Japan's been the class of the field overall.
And it wouldn't be an undeserved win either, but I have to say, for me, I think Gregory Franks has done so well to just keep on fighting in the way and gain 18 position. And in the same way, Bram van Uitven and Sam Bentham, both of them came from way down the pack to actually contest winning positions here. So that's going to be my pick of someone who obviously knows how to deal with the cars and just how they work with one another in traffic here. Still so close. Jack, what are your thoughts on the question?
I think Jack's just gone for a quick toilet break before we end up going to the last couple of laps of this round. So yeah, I'm sure he'll be back sooner rather than later.
I got back, as Hasse mentioned. He was like, "What do you think to the question?" And I didn't want to just come back and go, "Can you repeat the question?" But you know, I am back, and I had a thought while I was away. Penalties, we haven't mentioned them because we haven't really looked into it. I just had a quick peek at the iRacing info screen, and if you get 8 or 50 penalty points, say you get 1 for going off track, 2 for loss of control, and then 4 for contact. Occasionally you get 2 if it's light enough, and 9 times out of 10 in these NASCARs you'll just get 0 for little bumping. But if you get 50 penalty points, or 50 incident points, you will get a penalty, and then 10 incident points thereafter will also get a penalty. And with the amount of incidents that we've had, how close do you think some of these drivers are to the threshold?
I would imagine that some of them are quite close, actually, I could imagine. But it's just a guess. It's hardly even an educated guess, because I have no clue, actually.
Yeah, I'd say Bod. Trying to think of drivers who have been in the wars. Bod Boland's been in the wars a lot. Obviously, Ian Roots, who jumped in the Commons box, is no longer running. Stuart Musselwhite, he's no longer running either. So a lot of the drivers that have been, making quite a bit of contact, whether it was intentional or not, ended up not running anymore. So yeah, I reckon the top 10, what we're seeing at the moment, is probably safe to that.
I've got to say though, I think Hendrik de Grave could be quite close to that limit. We've seen a lot of him for multiple reasons, whether that is because he's at the pointy end of the order or he's had a few incidents. But you've got to think that Hendrik is maybe trying to stay as conservative as possible, but he's still got this battle raging on now, 3 wide at the front end of the order. Who's that running further down? I think that's the number 73, isn't it? Trying to get out of the way. I can't put my finger on who that actually is. that's dropping back. Here it is. It's Sven Calbert that is moving down the outside, getting out of the way of this lead battle. Look at this, 16 side by side with the number 99 and the 284 still side by side with Anton Dupin. Flemish Imports dominating the outside line, but they are losing a bit of time because Sam Bentham is giving everybody on the bottom row a little bit of a push. So seeing this charge this late on in the race, now going on to lap 186, so 15 laps of the race remaining. Massive sideways movement for a car in the background. An even bigger hit. That's everybody. That's the big one. We were waiting for it. Cars everywhere, engines blown, and still more contact. We're going to have a look back at that, Hasse.
Yeah, so that's Bentham's hit. Both those Flemish Sim Sports cars are hit. That's Carl Sharkey's hit as well. And all of them, basically, Jorn van den Akker's in it as well. I can hardly see who... Well, someone got around it. I think Jan Tusting was one of those drivers lucky enough to evade this whole situation, as well as Bram van Uyten. Sam Bentham.
That started it.
That might very well be. We'll go on board with Sam Bentham here for another look here. So, no, he's getting turned into by one of the Flemish Sim Sports cars and just manages to keep it under control.
I mean, that's classy. That is classy right there. The car control by Sam Bentham.
Sam Bentham, 10 out of 10 save. But the car doesn't look too good now, the 24 machine. And look at that there. That's Carl Sharkey, who's with a bit of...
It's because I mentioned penalties, isn't it? As soon as I mention penalties, all this goes off. I'm sorry.
I think it's going to be... Yeah, tight one now. What is it? 13 laps to go. We've had 187 laps. It all comes down to this, you could say. And with any luck, hopefully we'll get a good pile of cars who are going for the race win again. But, you know, I told you set me up. I was touching wood the entire time, Hasse. But Anton Dupin was involved in that. Vransk was involved with that. Kim Behait is now up the order again. He's in third place. They're in third place. So all of a sudden we just had it all turned round. With any luck, we can get a good number of cars on the lead lap, catching each other nicely, setting them up for the final, 10 laps probably of the race.
I noticed that there was Ian mentioning in chat that Frank still has 2 fast repairs, and that might come in very handy at this point. I think we'll see a lot of drivers pitting in, but of course, if those at the head of affairs have enough time and enough fuel, of course, because it's not a question of time, but if they have the fuel to actually be able to run till the end, will they do so? Or are we seeing everyone pitting in here, basically? I'm not quite sure. We're going to have a better look now. And it is pretty much everyone, at least of the front runners that have been in here. I think there was a fast repair left as well for Carl Sharkey, because he was out pretty quickly as well, and he's in third place on the road. Let's see who's exiting there as Frank's.
I think one thing to bear in mind, Hasse, is if I'm not mistaken, Ian Roots put a big paragraph in the Daytona general chat on the SimracersWorld Discord. I found it now. He put, to those guys racing on Sunday in the Dynamixx Daytona 500, it's imperative that you have your iRacing spotter on and not Crew Chief, which is another third-party piece of software. So a lot of this could be to do with guesswork, because if you are using the third-party software as requested not to, you can normally, there is a voice command which gives you the perfect amount of fuel to get to the end of the race, but like I've previously mentioned, they've been told not to use that, to use the iRacing spotter purely because of its oval capabilities. So they can't just ask their spotter to put in the right amount of fuel. This could be a lot of guesswork going into the final closing stages of the race.
Yeah, I think you could. Couldn't you in theory just turn off the spotter of Crew Chief and still use it for fuel calculations? I think that would be theoretically possible, although I don't think I would be doing it myself, just because of the work involved in fiddling around. Crew Chief has a lot of drop-down menus. It's not always easy to figure out exactly what does what and so on. So when it works, it's kind of just, yeah, leave it that way. But it's a good point. It's a very good point indeed. Now John Tusting leading the race from Carl Sharkey, Jorn van den Akker in the 44 machine there in fourth place. I think that is that the winner of a lucky dog? I was about to say. Or is that just Becker moving up the order up into second place?
They're side by side because we're going green this lap, mate.
Yeah, of course. That makes perfect sense. That does indeed make perfect sense. As you can see, the lights are off. There will be 11 laps of green flag racing left to go. So, not a long time, to be honest here. And it's all to fight for now, and let's just hope they can carry on racing all the way to the end. So we certainly don't want to end it under caution. That would be a big shame indeed.
It definitely would be. I think if we are going to end it under a caution, the best thing would be for a green-white checkered. So the only lap we go green would be the last lap. But the safety car pitting away, hopefully for the final time today, going on to lap 190. So it's a 10-lap dash for the end of the race, a 10-lap dash for the lead. Leading away is John Tusting, puts his foot to the floor now. Luca Becker tucks in behind, Carl Sharkey there in third. And then we've got Jorn van den Akker, Anton Dupin, Kimber Hake, Gregory Frank, Sven Kalber and Sam Bentham all still on the lead lap. So it's going to be 9 cars for the lead going into the closing stage of the race. We've been running for just over an hour now, and this is when your strategy, your capability behind the wheel really matters, isn't it, Jacko?
Well, I can answer that for Jack, and I can say it very much is, because this is the sharp end. This is when it all really matters. This is when it's all decided in the end. So if ever there was a time to put your talents and skills on display, now is the time to do it. But Boland telling us that Gregory Franks is the man for a hot lap. He needs to be watched. And as I've mentioned on several earlier occasions as well, I don't really feel like I want to even try and call this one out as they go 3 wide here. Someone's made contact with the wall, but it was a very slight graze, I think, there for Carl Sharkey, who lost a bit of speed, but I think might be able to just tuck in and keep everything under control, so to say. It could have gone very wrong there. It's Luca Becker with Anton Dupin, then John Tusting, Kimber Hake. So it's the 2 Flemish Sim Sports cars on the outside. And you can see John Tusting just swirling about ever so slightly. Then Jorn van den Akker is currently 5th there, behind then Greg Franks. And on the outside of Greg Franks is Carl Sharkey. And hadn't really mentioned that Sam Bentham not too far behind alongside Sven Kalber at this very time, but they're not going to be able to make it. That's my call as well, as we're in and within the final 10 laps here.
Yeah, 8 laps to go of this 200 lap race, less than 10% left. It's really coming down to say it's like swerving in and out by the looks of it. We're on board with Anton Dupin as he's leading the line so far. The Flemish Simsport guys, they've been so good throughout. They've had little hiccups here and there, but all 3 of them racing for the race lead. Dupin currently holding it. Luca Becker in 2nd place, who's done very well, up 16 places. Kimber Hake in 3rd, and John Tusting as well in 4th, although he seems to be slightly falling down the order, as we see the likes of Carl Sharkey and Van den Akker as well coming through. So this is certainly perfectly set up, Jack, for an astonishing end to one race.
It really is. You can see them firing their way past the camera now. Anton Dupin now in the lead, and it's going to come back to what we mentioned earlier, Jacko, where if you're leading the race going on to the final lap, you probably won't be leading it as you come around to finish the final lap, because the draft is just that effective here at Daytona in these NASCAR. So Anton Dupin still leading Luca Becker. He does have his teammate is Anton Dupin trying to keep up with him, Kimber Hake, but John Tusting has worked his way past now in the Quantum Racing machine. Kimber Hake still stuck on the outside line, but he does have Carl Sharkey there giving him a bit of a push, and somebody else behind as well. I'm trying to figure out who that is. Is that Sven Kalber giving him a push? No, it's who is that? Yes, it is. It's the number 92 machine. No, it's Casper Neustrom, who is a lapped car, but helping the outside line. So I'm sure Carl Sharkey and the Casper Neustrom are going to be best mates after the end of this.
Yeah, for sure. That's a bit of much needed assistance for Carl Sharkey there. As there's still fully squabbling all there. You can see, I think, a guy like Greg Franks at this moment just trying to bide his time and time his run perfectly to see if he can slingshot past on the final 2 laps or so. Because mind you, it does take a bit of time moving up through, and in that way, even though we're traveling at over 300 kilometers an hour, when you try to make that move, or at least that's my how it comes across when looking at it, at least it looks like you have to initiate it quite early if you want to actually be there at the line. So whether or not it's going to be for Gregory Franks, he could have picked up a bit of damage earlier as well, but I just expected him to have his fast repairs at hand to be able to have a fully functional machine here for the final bits of the race. It's still Flemish Simsports and Anton de Pan leading here. Luca Becker trying for the outside now with a good bit of a slingshot here as we're on to lap 196. So 5 more laps of racing. And after over 3 hours, it still could come down to anyone within, well, pretty much within the top 7. And then also a couple of lap cars within the mix.
Yeah, hopefully none of the lap cars get in the way so much, because we don't want anything to ruin this. Japan's now gone to the higher line to try and keep off a few of the other drivers, one of which is actually his teammate Behate, as he's getting very well. I think they're just sort of boxing in Luca Becker, because that is vital for these Flemish Simsport guys to make sure that he can't move out. But he's trying here. He's got ahead of Kim Behate, and he's going for maybe the other hand. No, he's just making sure that Kim can't go alongside, and they are sort of trying to box him in. He doesn't want to be. This is really tough for Luca. What on earth do you do here, lads? A tactical sort of now tears. He shows him to the outside. Kim Behate almost going into the wall. This is impossible to call.
Yeah, it very much is, as we're closing in on the final 3 laps of racing here. And it looks to be a couple of drivers in a really good position here. One would actually be Kim Behate, and another one of those drivers, oh, that's not the place to give it a bump drive through the corner there, but they seem to come out of it alive. Luca Becker, if Luca Becker can find a way through coming up to the line, it could be pole position for the sprint to the line as well, if you will, Carl Sharkey. And Gregory Franks, I think, just a little bit too far back down as well. And actually, Johan van den Akker could be in a very good position as well. But those things, they would have to happen somewhat, well, just about now, I guess, if anything's about to happen, because, well, it's so damn close. Look, we're actually inside of the bumper of the car behind. And, I'm on the edge of the seat right now. This is exceptional stuff.
It really is. We saw there looking back from Anton Dupin, getting a look inside the engine bay of Luca Becker as we go on to the penultimate lap here at Daytona for the SimracersWorld Dynamixx Daytona 500. Going through turns 1 and 2 now. Still Anton Dupin in the lead, but his teammate Kim Behate has been barged down into P5, so he no longer has the assistance. You can see he's having to weave to try and defend, almost 3 wide in the background, almost 3 wide for the lead. And the outside line is getting more and more attention, led by John Tusting in the number 21. Then the number 4 of Kim Behate also there to assist. He's still got Carl Sharkey there trying to work his way back up through the order. He can't decide what lane he goes on to, and Hasse, we're now going on to the final lap number 200 of the Dynamixx Daytona 500.
So after 500 miles, it's going to be separated by almost nothing, and there's a crash here almost. Oh, that's Johan van den Akker, and he's actually kept it going, and he's going to be out of the running, and still Anton Dupin, as they're going to be on the back straight now. This is absolutely incredible stuff. Look at Luca Becker. The question is Luca Becker too close or what? And Kim Behate there in 3rd place now. I can't really see it going to anyone there. Further back the order. This is going to be edge of the seat stuff to the line, and look at that. Maybe a bit of a helping hand, but it can't be in the corner. And here comes Luca Becker. But I think it's going to be Anton Dupin for the line. Let's see. Here they come. Oh, and they spread out across the road. And once
Luca
again,
Becker's got his nose
Luca
ahead.
Becker gonna take it, or it's gonna be Justin. It's gonna be Luca Becker and the cross line. The Luxembourg driver, Luca Becker, 500 miles, so close to one another. That was extraordinary. And we're gonna have another look at the checkered flag immediately. Jacko, talk us through it.
I've never actually had my heart race that much on a sim race at all, but Luca Becker times it to perfection. Anton Tupan actually came home in fourth. Look around the outside. John Tusting from nowhere. He hasn't been at the front at all this race, apart from the last 10, 20 laps. And he just gets in to take home second place. Gregory Vransk as well, after a setback earlier on, is in third. And Anton Tupan, oh, well, I mean, that's stunning, Jack. And a great drive by Luca Becker. He knew exactly what he was doing. That's a big hit.
Yeah, he knew exactly how to play that. And like I said, Anton Dupin, he was in the lead going on to the final lap, but Luca Becker, with that assistance, managed to bring home the win. A great drive from Luca Becker, an even better one from John Tusting for me. Like you said, he was nowhere throughout that race, but suddenly brought it home in second place. Greg Franks third, Anton Dupin in fourth, and Kimber Haight in fifth. We'll have some more confirmed results for you very, very shortly. But to think, 500 miles later, we are sat here and the the podium has been settled by 300ths of a second.
Indeed it has. That was absolutely huge at the end there. Luca Becker with the win in front of John Tusting, Gregory Franks, Anton Dupin, Kimber Haight, and Carl Sharkey in 6th place. Then Sven Kalbert, Johan van den Akker, then Sam Bentham, Kasper Nyström of Sweden, then Bram van Uiten, Henrik de Grave, Jochen Lennart finishing 13th as boss of the Dynamixx team. Indeed, they're and boss of this event in the end. Sorry, Ian, for actually making it happen. That goes to both of you. I can't really put one over the other in the end of who's the boss of bosses. Anyway, let's get on with it. Paul Gosling in 14th place, Bart Bol in 15th, then Thijs van den Berge, Stuart Musselwhite in 17th, Austin Gretorix in 18th place, and I'm just gonna scroll down for the final bit of the results with Ian Roots, Roberto Motta, Ivo Correra, Dean Sims 22nd, Kurt van Hoenacker in 23rd, Gavin Hall 24th, and Ryan Walker in 25th place. Wow, that was quite something.
I think that was welcome to the world of oval racing, wasn't it, for us three especially, and hopefully for you guys at home and anybody driving it. Yeah, absolutely. Astonishing finish to the race. And as you said, I mean, even if you only caught the last 11 laps, that was a more exciting race than probably the majority of the real-life F1's going to give you. So, yeah, I mean, that was thoroughly enjoyable from my perspective. Jack, what about you?
Yeah, 100%, like you say, welcome to the world of oval racing. I think that's the perfect way to do it for me. Personally, I'm not a massive fan of oval racing. Never really have been. It's all about circuit racing for me. But I think today, yeah, my opinions have changed slightly. And I'm going to be watching a hell of a lot more of oval racing, mainly for the finishes, because to see that we were racing for over 3 hours, 500 miles, 200 laps of the Daytona International Speedway, and for the win to be settled by 300ths of a second, and then for the top 5 to be separated by 1/10 of a second. It's just insane. And yeah, there's no better way to do it. And like you said, Jacko, for the drivers as well, because some of these guys are mainly sort of accompanied with their GT cars and their Formula cars and everything of the likes to come into what could be a brand new car for them, and to get away with a really, really good result, and to show that it's more than just turning left. It's something new for us all.
It really is, and it's been what a great experience it's been actually getting the chance to commentate and bring you one of these events. I do look forward to the next time we'll get the chance to do one of these, because it has been very good fun. Indeed. I also think it's about time to shut off the broadcast for today. I think we might have the time for a quick interview with channel organization owner and race organizer and driver Ian Roots. So Ian, thanks for joining us yet again here at the tail end of the event here today. An amazing race. What a finale. What are your thoughts on what you saw there coming to the line?
Well, to be honest, we set it at 4 attempts of green checkered because we thought it might get a bit chaotic, but the guys in that lead pack raced it perfectly, didn't they? It was one shot, and yeah, it was just astonishing. My heart rate was going up just watching it. I don't know what it would have been like actually sat in the car, but what a spectacle, what a great way to finish an event.
Yeah, indeed, I almost lost my voice as well there, so I'm gonna try and take it easy with that. But yeah, an amazing race in the end, of course. Eventful, but it's a learning curve for all of us. Can you tell us a bit more about the early development plans there is for an SRW Oval League, if it turns out it's what the people want?
Yeah, as I said in the YouTube chat, there are plans, and it is on paper. The dates have been set. Effectively, it would be a 6-week series, starting or pretty much overlapping the same final week as the Evo and the Pro League, so that we could squeeze it in before Christmas. So it'll be weekly, and it'll be early in the week, maybe a Monday or a Tuesday. Yeah, and a percentage race distance. So obviously that was a full race distance, and it was on the longest, biggest, fastest track that NASCAR has to offer. The plan would be to do a percentage. We haven't worked that out yet. Possibly as much as 50, but no more, so that we could get a 2-hour broadcast window in. Yeah, so looking at the smaller tracks, Charlotte, Dover, that type of track, Martinsville. Yeah, I've raced a few in the NASCAR Fix Series. It's a lot more difficult than Daytona because it's all about tyre wear and feathering the throttle through the corners. So a little bit more practice involved with that. But yeah, I think it's got legs. It's definitely got legs. Discussion. I'm going to have a discussion with all those that have taken part today and see if the interest is there. And I think it is definitely viable.
That's great to hear, Ian, and we'll be looking forward to it, to the act of bringing it out to folks as well, because we've had a great deal of fun here in the booth commentating this one today. Make no mistake about it. Anyway, Ian, is there anyone you'd like to give a final shout out to or thanks to while you're at it?
Yeah, I've done that already. Oh, yeah. I want to ask you. I want to ask you guys a question, because you guys always ask the questions. What was your opinion? And I want all three of you to answer, because obviously you're the guys that sat there in the booth watching this for the first time. A lot of you, I don't think any of you have done NASCAR ovals before. So starting with you, Hasse, how did you find it?
I found it great, and especially if you just cut down ever so slightly on the race distance, so just to make it a little more concentrated and a little less drawn out. I think it has some really good potential, both in terms of like for the racing sake of it for the drivers, but also in terms of something that would be worth watching and something that I would personally love to cover on a regular basis, because it has been excellent fun. I think the only problem I would have with it would be not my problem, but my neighbors having a problem with me getting this excited. If we have this kind of finish every time, I'm gonna have a problem on my hand. I'm probably gonna need to find another place to live. So
yeah, I think you're right. Condensing it down, making it into a 2-hour broadcast tops with maybe an hour or maybe an hour and a half of the race, working out percentages will be difficult for us. But if we got it right, I think you're right. I think condensing it would be the right way to go. But yeah, thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Now I'm going to go to Mr. Werrell first. I'll leave the other Jack till last. How did you find it, Jack?
How does same place, same time tomorrow sound?
I'm glad you enjoyed it. It is something very different, and something very different for you guys, I know. But that's kind of, you've summed it up, Jack.
Yeah, it's completely new territory. Never commentated on oval before, and then just for the top 10 to be separated by a tenth of a second. Normally you get two cars occasionally on like a road race to be separated by a tenth of a second, but to have it pretty much guaranteed every time in oval is something I can't get enough on. I think you've given me the bug now. I want to go and watch some NASCAR now.
I watch it every week. It's on, actually. I watch it on television. I have done for years, and a lot of people say, "Oh, you're mad. It's boring." I'm sorry. It's far from boring, and if you can get a pack like that towards the end of any of the events, it makes for fantastic viewing. But thank you for what you've done today, guys. Right, I'm going to move on to Jack Oliphant. For those that don't know, that are still watching, and there are a few of you already, That was Jack's first event with us. It's his first job with SimracersWorld TV, and we threw him in at the deep end. We gave him some good support though with Hasse and the other Jack. How did you find it, Jack?
I found it a massive surprise and a really sort of good honour as well to cover this. I mean, I know you were saying to me when we had a chat first time around that it's one of the biggest events and one of the most events you were most excited for. So thank you very much for letting me be a part of it. And I'll be honest, I wouldn't have been able to do it without the other two commentators as well. But you know, it's just been really, surprising for me. I never thought oval racing was something that I would. I mean, I launched up iRacing for the first time, which is based around oval racing, and I never once even looked at doing an oval race. I went straight to the MX-5s. I thought, oh, that's the racing I want to do. But now I'm actually thinking about getting my oval license. It's been that good. Never going to try and participate with the likes of you guys. It's far too quick for me. But I really enjoy it. I think the biggest problem you're going to have when you launch a series is actually trying to pick the commentators, because by the looks of the Discord that we've got going on for the commentators and broadcasters, everyone wants to be involved here.
Yeah, I can see that. It is going to be a very difficult job. I think it's going to have to come in out of drawing names from a hat. I think a random process, because, you know, you've done us proud. The three of you have done us proud today. I say I've listened to the last hour, and the excitement you guys bring across, it's absolutely been fantastic. And all I can finally say is to you, Jack, is welcome to SimracersWorld TV, and I'm sure the other guys will join me in saying you've done a fantastic job today.
Thank you very much. No, it's been a great honour, and it's just like I can't wait for the next thing, whatever that might be, oval, GT racing, whatever it is. I'm excited to be part of it.
Excellent. Thanks, guys. Okay, I'll let you guys sign off, but thanks again to you guys, because without you guys, we wouldn't have a broadcast. So my final thanks goes to the three of you. Thanks again.
Well, thanks to you as well, Ian. And we're gonna have I could sign off, but you know we have a guy in the waiting room, and I'm just gonna draw him in. I think Jack Werrell, you would probably love to have a word with Kim Behate.
Welcome to the commentary box, Kim. Are you still shaking? Because that seemed like a very, very tense race, and to finish in 5th, but a 10th behind the leader, that's pretty close, isn't it?
Hi guys, yeah, it was really close, really exciting. Got my heart rate pumping up to the max.
We knew that the Flemish sim sports were going to be very competitive going into this, with a couple of little insider views from coming from various places. But what was it that you think that set you apart? Sadly losing Hendrik the Grave from the pack towards the end, but you and Anton were constantly up there, as well as Hendrik, throughout a lot of the race. What do you think separated you from the rest?
Yeah, I don't know. I think especially the three of us tried to do all the practice races and really try to practice keeping the line and working a little strategy between the three of us. So now at the end, it's always a lottery. A lot can happen. You can get involved in accidents. You can cause accidents, but it's trying to stay safe and trying to help each other work out what's going to happen, and hope it ends well.
Well, it definitely ended well, getting obviously 2 cars into the top 5. And we've mentioned it so much that working together massively helps you around an oval, with obviously the draft, the side draft, a bit of a push as well. Do you think that having your teammates help, like helping you throughout the race for a lot of it, do you think that helped you get the results that you did today?
Yeah, I think it did. We were quite set to each other and tried to help each other out, but especially when you're in a pack of cars, it doesn't matter if you're teammates, but if you're in a pack of 5-6 cars, you can go a lot faster than just 3 cars up ahead. So at the end, you have to try to work together with everybody, but it's not always that easy, of course.
Well, it definitely looked like you had your hands full today, and once again, a massive well done for finishing at all, but more importantly, finishing in P5. While we've got you in the commentary box, and while you're still live here on SimracersWorld TV, is there anybody you'd like to thank or shout out?
Well, in the first place, Ian, especially for stepping out of the comfort box to organize something like this. Oval isn't that popular in Europe, and like you guys said, that it's a really exciting sport if you get into it. It's not just driving around in circles. There's an entire strategy behind it. So it makes it really exciting, and I was quite happy to hear that that they wanted to organize something down into SimracersWorld. So very happy with that. And then you guys for the broadcast, and of course my two teammates. They spend a lot of time practicing together and did really well. Just a little unhappy losing Hendrik at the end, but I'm proud of them.
Brilliant stuff. Thank you very much for the kind words, and I'm sure we'll end up seeing you back out in a NASCAR in no time at all. But once again, massive well done, and thank you for joining us in the commentary box here on SimracersWorld TV.
Thanks, guys. Bye bye.
So that was Kim Behate, and that'll be the final words from us as well, from Jack Oliphant, Jack Werrell, and myself, Hasse Rømer, here in the booth. It has been our utmost of pleasures taking you through these 4 hours of broadcasting, 500 miles, 200 laps of racing, and so much action that I could hardly even remember half of it anyways now, because oh my, that's been a lot. Anyways, if you've enjoyed what you've seen here today on SimracersWorld TV, do leave us a like, and do also subscribe if you want to see more of this really good stuff. I will be back with Jack Werrell tonight, indeed, at 9:30 British summertime, or 11:30 Central European summertime, as it is normally called, indeed, for the Sunday Drivers MX-5 series from Oran Park, which has been made free. So more of Jack, more of me later on, if there's still a voice that can speak when we get that far. But from us in the booth, as I said, it's been a great pleasure having you along. Thank you all so much for tuning in. And from all of us, until next time, take care, have fun, and bye-bye.